Do you want your daughter going into the bathroom with Buck?
With Buck?
Who are the group of people saying, like, hey, trans people are real, we should alleviate their problems as much as possible? That might even mean some responsible exploration in high school with puberty blocks or something maybe, but we should be careful. We need to make sure that we're having challenging conversations with these children. We're not just force-feeding kids drugs to make them twisted, right? Nobody has that opinion. On the left, you've got people saying you should be able to identify as deer, as activists online or on college campuses, and on the right, you've got people saying that, like, I don't think trans people are real at all. So, like, when those are the only two positions that exist, and when society tends to culturally shift left over time, it's not surprising that it's gonna move more and more and more extremely far to the left. Like, you can't go from screeching for decades, I think trans people are fake, it's bullshit, to being like, okay, maybe trans people are real, but can they please not be real until they're 18? Like, motherfucker, you lost that fight already because you never wanted to hold that position. What do you mean?
But like, how could you say that? Like, how could you say that when like me and Buck are sitting right in front of you telling you that's not the case? And like,
Hey, I'm Buck Angel. I'm a transsexual man. I transitioned from being born female to living as a man 30 years ago. And now I'm so old, they call me Trampaw. So there you go.
You know, I didn't know if I was screwing up when I was addressing you by the wrong pronouns before the show, because I actually am so confused. I didn't know which way to go.
That's actually a compliment. Thank you.
Destiny, how about you, sir?
Hey, my name is Destiny. I do, I guess, far left-leaning content, political content on YouTube, not on Twitch anymore. And yeah, that's what I do.
Nick?
I'm Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I have transitioned from man to man. And
wow, you can't even tell.
I know. It was a failed transition. One of the botched stories that you hear about. So it's looking grim for me.
And MrGirl, please tell us a little bit about yourself for new viewers.
My name's MrGirl. I know the name makes it sound like maybe I'm trans or non-binary. I'm kind of a gender abolitionist, I guess. I believe in biological sex, and I don't believe in gender that much. But I don't want to be put in a box, so I call myself MrGirl, and you know, that's my gamer tag. That's it.
Very good. I'm going to be trying to give everybody a chance to talk and interrupting now and then, just so we can get an answer on things. Nobody it gets confusing. We're all very passionate about this stuff, but I want to make sure the audience gets their answer that they crave, because everyone hates evasive debates. But MrGirl has given me a list of questions here to get the conversation started. I've randomized the order we're going to go in. Trampaw, Buck Angel, I'm going to start with you. Gender is a hotly debated topic between political groups, but rarely debated within political groups. Both conservatives and progressives are reluctant to acknowledge that their positions are even up for debate. Is your position up for debate? What is your working definition of man, woman, sex, gender, and transgender? Go ahead.
Okay, so my positions are not necessarily up for debate. So I believe in biology. So I'm kind of going to be this trans person who's possibly going to be more leaning towards probably most of what all of you guys talk about. So I believe in biology. I believe that biology is real. I am a biological female, even though I don't look that way. I believe gender is on some level could be socially constructed, though I do think it does pertain to the sex. What were the other ones? Am I gender, sex?
Definition of man, woman, sex.
Right.
Gender.
Great question. Definition of a man or a woman is it pertains to biology. So an adult human male, an adult human female, those things I'm very strict on. I am not a man. I am a transsexual man. So I am different than all of the guys sitting here, and I acknowledge that. So my it's not up for debate with me in any way, shape, or form. I 100%. The only reason I'm a transsexual person is because of biology. If biology wasn't on the table, I wouldn't be having the conversation of why did I need a sex change. So no, I'm very now. The reason why I think a lot of other people don't debate it now is because it's a very thing that's hard to debate. You get totally called a bigot or a transphobe or a TERF, or you just get all these names thrown at you. And being a transsexual person, I can be in the debate a little harder than most people. But if any of you start having that conversation, you're immediately name called. So I think it's hard in the political space to be sort of middle ground or to have a nuanced idea of this, because you get totally thrown under the bus. So I'm pretty hard straight on facts. I live in a factual life, in reality, And why I'm here is to talk about that, and that it is important that biology stays in the transsexual space.
Destiny, I'm going to go for you to response to that, because I think I already know Nick's positions. Do you have any disagreements with that?
I don't think so. I think any of our disagreements are going to like get really into the weeds. Like, I think that it's important to recognize that there is like a biological reality. I think it's kind of silly that on one end, like, I understand where the desire comes from to say things like trans women are women or trans men are men, because like socially, in some instance, we wanted to be treated that way. But obviously, if trans women were women, then they wouldn't need hormones or surgery. So obviously, there's something else going on that we have to account for. But yeah, I imagine we'll probably get more into the weeds on this. I will say one thing. I think it's a little bit silly sometimes when it's usually conservatives will push you and they'll say something like, what is a woman? Can you give a definition? That's a really hard thing to define. Anytime we talk about any like highly multi-traded, multifaceted thing, it's very hard to give a strict definition. Like we were talking the other day, if I were to ask you, like, give me the definition of a table, I want the definition that includes every single table and excludes everything that's not a table. Like, how does it have to have 3 legs? Some have 1 leg. Are you able to sit on them? What's in between a table and a chair? Like, and that's a really simple thing. We could get into more complicated. What makes a building a building? What makes a car, not a motorcycle or a van or whatever? But yeah, I think that it's good to recognize that these things are like very complicated, that there are going to be some biological realities that are worth addressing and talking about, and we need to be careful when we separate like social and biological fact, I guess, for the purposes of these conversations.
Now, Nick, what do you think about that? What do you think about the definition of a man and woman as Destiny puts it forth? Because I've heard that before.
I think there's a way to overcomplicate issues for the purposes of discussion and semantics, and I think it was just done. No slight to Destiny, of course. He is embroiled in the language of gender in this debate. Well, I shouldn't put you there yet, but I'm guessing we're going to trend that way. But the definition of woman does not actually need to encompass every single aspect of every single thing. The idea that a definition must encompass every possible iteration ever is not actually true. We accept common definitions with aberrations all the time because those common definitions are useful for ordering society and not wasting a whole bunch of time doing this. I mean, if we debated what a woman was forever, trying to find the 0.001% outlier and say, well, that discredits the entire definition, then that would be useless. That can just be an aberration, and that's okay. Aberration isn't derogatory. I mean, maybe if you went and called someone like you're an aberration, that could be a problem. But generally speaking, a woman has an XX pair of chromosomes and a vagina. That solves most of those problems. There, I fixed it. And Biden can hire me if you ever need to consult on what a woman is.
What do you think about that, Destiny? There's less nuance.
I mean, again, like I generally agree. Like I think that in society, like 99% of us understand like what is a man or what is a woman, but when we're talking about trans people, we are specifically talking about edge cases. So I mean, it seems like for the purposes of discussing trans people, we kind of have to elevate our understanding of these concepts to a little bit more nuance than just saying like men have dicks and women have pussies, because obviously we're missing a lot of the conversation there. I'm not really too attached to what words we use, but yeah.
I don't see why we have to elevate the conversation, though. I mean, men have dicks, women have pussies is a reality that we're into, and there's no reason when dealing with an edge case that needs to be any different. Again, it doesn't
like,
speak to the.
Do you have any children?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have a daughter?
Yep.
Do you want your daughter going into the bathroom with Buck?
With Buck? I don't care.
Yes.
So like this is like the standard, like conservatives will say like it shouldn't matter, blah blah blah, but like, do I want my son going into the bathroom with Blair White? Do I want, like, people always use these like on one end to say that like, oh, I don't want these creepy trans people in bathrooms with my children, but then on the other hand, when you have like a clearly passing trans person, well, what do you want to do with them? Like, it's obviously like, unless you're going to tell me that you don't believe in like gendered bathrooms, in which case, right? So it seems like we have to talk a little bit more about it, right?
But I mean, the example you just gave was my daughter going into the bathroom with a biological female.
Yeah, but
so I feel like that wouldn't actually like be controversial.
Well, it would be controversial.
Yeah, it would
because look at
absolutely
me.
be.
It would be controversial. I mean,
If somebody
I don't
like
use
Buck
the
came
women's
Well,
walking
don't
out
you
of
have
the
a card that you hand out that
if
says,
somebody
by
like
the way,
Buck,
I have a
if somebody
vagina.
like Buck came walking out of the bathroom in the wrong state, Buck would get killed, right? Like,
no,
depending on where
I
you're
would.
like, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But prior to my transition, before I even looked like this, I used the men's room. But I'm going to tell you, it's different for trans men than it is for trans women, right? So that being said, when I was a butch woman, no guys don't care about me going in. It's different in the women's room. None of you have ever been in the women's room, I assume. Yeah, I have. So it's a different place. It's a much more place where women feel they need to be safe on some level, and they also do different things in women's room than they do in the men's room. So men never got upset at me as a butch woman walking into the men's room. They didn't care. But you have to understand that it's a very, very delicate conversation when it comes to women. And trans women are not women. Trans women are trans women. And when you have to understand it's very important that we distinguish this for many reasons, but one reason being this type of conversation. And a lot of trans women these days, well, I wouldn't use a lot, but some trans women don't want to pass. I pass. We call that passing, right? I made it so I look like a man. I can walk the world as a man. No one would ever even know that I have a pussy unless I like literally show you or talk about it. That was the whole point of my sex change. And so today people don't want to look like a woman. They want to look like a woman with a beard or not even trying. And then of course women are going to get mad if they go into the woman's room. They feel unsafe. And that is a real thing that needs to be discussed without everyone being called transphobic. It's unfair for women not to be able to have that conversation.
Lauren is joining us.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Max. Were you going to address that?
I think Destiny is running interference for some trans activists and progressives here, because yes, you can come up with a practical situation where, okay, the definition of man and woman is suddenly blurred, but we could also just as easily say trans women use the women's bathroom, but not because they are women. You don't have to be a woman literally to enter a bathroom that has a picture of a woman on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I think that part of the reason we're overcomplicating these definitions is because some trans people, not all, and some trans activists and progressives can't stand the idea that like a trans woman doesn't get to actually be in the real literal box like woman. And so they want to just expand the definition of woman and just stretch it out until they can just put it around themselves. And like you can do that, like Nick was saying, like a super expert in a field can blow your mind with like all the things that go into being biologically female. But walking down the street, yeah, women have XX and they have pussies. And I think that we're using that hyper expert lens to kind of disintegrate the idea of a woman in normal social situations where lay people are just like talking to each other, so that trans people can feel like they are technically, literally, biologically, actually the sex that they want to be.
I think that on the back of that, I think to guide for the rest of this conversation, I think it's really important that we distinguish between what we're saying on the panel and then kind of like the newer age of trans something ideas. I think Buck mentioned something earlier. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but something that Buck mentioned that I've seen a lot on the internet was that in the great olden days of the 90s, of like going back even just like 1 decade ago, it seemed like if you were a trans person, your goal was to pass as not as a cis person, but as a whatever gender you wanted your expression to be. That was like what you needed to do. That was the whole point of getting gender affirming surgeries, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. But nowadays, there's a newer thing where you have people that are identifying as things that have no interest in passing. And I think that their ideas, those newer ideas, are going to be substantially different than what a lot of other trans people's ideas are. So I think when we talk about these things, we have to be careful to differentiate between them. Because some of the people that you bring up, Max, like if I had conversations with these people, I would be called I got banned from Twitch for being transphobic. So that's the nature of those conversations. Versus like more traditional trans people, which sounds weird to say, are going to have have like a totally different set of like how these things all intersect with one another. Yeah.
No, it's not weird to say. I have to tell you, it's why I actually call myself a transsexual.
Yeah.
I'm not transgender. I'm transsexual, and I have always made this huge point. If you all know and follow me on Twitter, I'm a transsexual. That is somebody who was born in one gender or one sex and wants to look and feel like the other sex. We make a huge effort to pass. We make a huge effort. I'm not a trans person. I call myself a man. I'm male. Everything says male on it. That is the whole point of me transitioning. Today we have this newer space where you don't need gender dysphoria. You can just be trans without any diagnosis. I have a disorder called gender dysphoria, and there's a huge part of the trans community that does not want to acknowledge that. They say anyone can be trans. I don't even know what that is. That has nothing to do with me or people like me who actually feel like we have a disorder. We've been diagnosed in it. We deal with it. We do this in order so that we can walk the world happy and free. So there's two different places in this trans community.
Can I jump in here, or was I just brought in for comedic relief? Yeah,
because you're pretty.
I thought you would just have like the woman sit here, be quiet the whole time while you all talk about what women want. I think that would be cool.
And what they are.
Excellent, excellent.
Before we get into transl culture, Lauren, could you give us your working definitions of man, woman, sex, gender, and transgender? Anything else that you heard since you were joining us? These are just the basics. By the way, I don't think I've heard the term transsexual in about 20 years. I didn't know we could still say that.
Well, you can't.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. I'm telling you, you can.
We all got a transsexual pass from Buck. Yes.
Did everyone come in here and like give their definition of each of these terms at the beginning?
That's my first discussion question.
Sorry.
One person didn't come in here and give any terms or definitions at all, but...
You're replacing Brianna Wu, so you have to try to represent her positions as best as possible.
I'll do my best. Have you heard of trans truthers before?
I'm going to need you to bring your voice way down a couple octaves to
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Brianna
already
Wu.
pretty low here, man.
Jesus. Okay, so,
Got that
oh my
nice
God.
14-year-old boy going through puberty voice. But yeah, I've got a lot of trans truthers that actually do think I'm male to female already. So I'm going to do my best here. They're the people that post those like photos of Kyle Rittenhouse, and they're like, look at this, like look at his hip size, male. Yeah. But anyways, male. Yeah, someone who is biologically got male genitals. Female, someone who has biologically got vagina, female genitals. What were the other definitions?
Trans. Man, woman, sex, gender, transgender.
Sex, I guess it can either mean the act of sex or your sexual body parts. Gender is your gender expression in society.
Okay. Then this next one, Destiny, I'm going to go to you for obvious reasons. If transl culture, because you are the one who suffered from it most recently, I think. If transl culture is defined as a fear of societal punishment for disagreeing with progressive narratives about gender, do you think it exists, and has it gone too far?
I think it's important when we talk about these things to know that they're very localized. So, like, does it exist in my world? Abso-fucking-lutely. Where I exist in a very online world. I'm on Twitch or whatever. Like, if I go to, like, Alabama, Louisiana, or whatever, am I going to find a lot of, like, transl culture? Probably not. But, yeah, I mean, I would say that, like, I would say it's probably gone a little bit too far when it comes to the online stuff. I think that the nature of the conversations has made it so that, like, if you're acting like a goofy child, I can say that. If you're 16, 17, 18, 19, if you're acting like you're being weird, you're having a phase, whatever shit you're going through, I can, like, kind of make fun of you for it, and that's fine. And I think that kids should go through phases. I think that's fine. We should all be crazy when we're 18, 19, 20. That's acceptable. But when it gets wrapped up in gender identity, all of a sudden it's become this, like, unassailable topic. And when like, autism is a gender, and when you've got neopronouns, you've got, like, a million different things, it becomes really weird to have any sort of critical or challenging conversation around any of these topics, because now, like, you can't be an opposing voice. You're a transphobe. You can't have, like, an opposing opinion. You're just a transphobic person that wants trans people to kill themselves. And that's really frustrating. And those conversations have gone, like, way, way, way too far, I think, to where basically, like, the MO now is if you see somebody that says something you disagree with, because of the tools we have on the internet, you're trying to destroy their life in as many ways possible. It used to be that we just got kicked off of Teams. Now we're getting kicked off of social media. Now we're getting banned from YouTube. Now we're getting banned from Twitch. Now it's like every part, like, it wouldn't surprise me if pretty soon it's like if you've ever said something thing. Like, you don't believe that trans women should play sports with cis women? You're never going to be able to get a Visa card again because I emailed the guy that underwrites these loans. Yeah, I think it's too far. I think it's got a little insane.
MrGirl, what do you think about that? That it's highly localized and not everywhere, like Destiny's saying about cancel culture.
It sounds sane, but it's a delusion. No, I think that I think it is spreading very rapidly, very, very rapidly. Like, I remember telling some of my friends, like there's subreddits where like you can get banned if you say I define women as having like 2 X chromosomes, including the subreddit called 2 X chromosomes. They will now ban you for saying that the title of their subreddit is correct.
That's so funny. I'm sorry.
and my friends are like, well, that's Reddit, right? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like this is a problem. It's like a spreading problem, and it's spreading super fast. And I'm like, you can see it go from a kind of niche, like, super hyper liberal space to a Supreme Court justice being afraid to answer the question of what is a woman. And so it is localized the way that if your house is on fire and only half of it is on fire, the fire, yes, technically it's localized, and like maybe you can go visit the other half of the house that's not on fire, but it feels like it's spreading pretty fast, and it feels like an emergency.
Buck, you're nodding. You've obviously seen this develop to where we are now and been involved in it. What kind of perspective can you give on it?
Well, I think it's really, first off, I think cancel culture is very immature, and I think that it's embarrassing as a trans person to be connected to this type of behavior, which it really comes out of a lot in the trans community. I think in some level it started there. And I find it to be really a way that trans people are starting to be hated more and more. And cancel culture is a way and a means to control what's being said out there. And they try to cancel me all the time, but because I'm an actual trans person, it's very difficult to do. And I speak against a lot of it. And I noticed that's exactly what they want to do. They want to shut you down, but I don't necessarily think it's localized. I think that it is spreading, and I think it is getting into other communities and other spaces. But from my own perspective, I really did see it come out of the trans community when trans women or women mantra really became so powerful. And if you even pushed against that in any tiny bit, you were immediately, canceled or called a TERF or whatever the heck other stuff they're doing. It's a scary space that we're in. And it's why I sit here with all you today and why I continue to speak out about it.
I think we can all agree that cancel culture and cancel culture in general is super fucking gay. I think that's where we can go. With this one, it's everywhere, and it's about power. It's about abusing a status of minority, which is, some people, Buck being an example, have an actual gender dysphoria. They have a minority status that should be in some ways acknowledged. Whatever that manifests as, it should at least be acknowledged. But there's a whole wave of people who are riding this idea of particularly kids, let's be honest, kids to teenagers, and their struggles with identity in general, and they're taking them and offering them an opportunity to assume a status, and that status comes with power. That status comes with, it's supposed to be a burdensome status, but we're flipping the script on that now. And if you are a trans student, you are exalted by authorities, you are protected, and you are given authority over other students by the arbitrary nature of your assignment, we'll call it. And I think in many cases, it's less about actual gender dysphoria and gender assignment, and it's a whole lot about a struggle for identity and then finding a life rope at the worst fucking time in anybody's life, junior high and high school. Nobody likes it, and you suddenly have a way out, and that way out is a way up, and it's by stepping on the faces of everyone around you who's been fucking you over for the last couple years.
I just want to jump in here. Someone in the chat pointed out I used the word gender to define gender, and that was a fuck up on my part. I meant to say the social expression of sex, not gender. And this is something I wanted to talk to Buck about, because one of my big concerns with cancel culture and the big trans movement coming about is the erasure of gender being somewhat separated from your sex. So while it is the social expression of certain sex characteristics, like to be masculine, you don't have to have a penis. To be feminine, you don't have to have a vagina, right? And I feel like that is being a bit erased with the trans conversation. It's like, oh, you are a masculine girl. Well, you need to now have your sex characteristics match your gender expression. So like to you, Buck, I'd be curious, why was it so important for you to change the sex characteristics to what about, was your gender identity publicly not enough being masculine?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Just be a tomboy?
Yeah, I was a tomboy. I was all of those things. And we're not even allowed to say tomboy anymore. That's why I'm a tomboy. No, so I always was very masculine, even as I grew up. I'm 59, so I grew up in the 60s and the 70s when we didn't even have any of these conversations, and tomboy was fine. And that being said, I was always a hyper masculine as a woman. I was a very butch, identified lesbian woman. But it always in the back of my head, there was something about being a woman or being called a girl that just, I always cringed, and I never felt that. So I really did need my gender expression to, on some level, come out and be physically this way so that the world would see me as, so my gender expression had to be connected to my sex expression, even though I didn't have an actual sex change. That's impossible. It's why we called it the sex change back in the day.
But is that because we have attached the word girl so much with certain gender characteristics? Like, this was like the big thing of the feminists, second wave Simone de Beauvoir feminists. They wanted to split gender and sex and be like, no, when you say the word girl, that doesn't mean feminine or masculine. But now it feels like we kind of tried that, and we're going straight back to your sex is your gender.
That's right. Yeah. So again, I can only speak for myself. I don't know. I think they're twisting words. I think this new trans, and I call it this new trans agenda because it has nothing, that's not where people like me come from. Like I said, I went through many 10, 15 years of therapy before I transitioned. And, that was really instrumental in me really understanding where I needed to go. I was one of the very first people here in Los Angeles to take hormones and to even try it 30 years ago. I was an experiment. So I was willing to take all of that on in order to remove my dysphoria, because I did have massive dysphoria around walking the world as a girl. So I think your question is fantastic. And I would say that even if I could still be living as a masculine woman, I wouldn't make that choice. I really do feel much more comfortable and live a beautiful, more amazing life I could ever even imagine, having had my transition to living to look male. If that makes sense.
Last big question here. If there were no association with feminine with the word girl, like if people saw girls as having the exact same social standing as men in every way, would you have transitioned physically?
Oh, I would have 100%. Okay. Yeah. Because I feel comfortable being a man. I even though I could have been, like I said, I lived masculine as a woman. I did. And I don't think it was the words. I don't think so. Because remember, I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up with any of what a lot of the youngsters are dealing with. And I think what a lot of the youngsters are dealing with does play into why they are transitioning and why they feel that they are trans with no diagnosis.
I guess I'm trying to figure out like why the word girl would bother you. I really appreciate how like honest you're being about this, because like I can't imagine talking, maybe this is a bad example, but like there are a lot of people that look at things about themselves and hate it, like Michael Jackson changing his skin color, right? Yeah. And I know if we went into the social sphere and someone said, hearing that I was a white woman just really bothered me all the time. And some people it does, like it seriously does. They don't want to be seen as white. They don't want to be seen as X, Y, Z. Sorry, Lauren, what were you saying?
Doesn't it bother you when you're when the trans truthers say that you're secretly a man?
I've been on the internet far too long for it to bother me that much.
Okay, yeah, I know that, but I think that's bullshit because I've been on the internet for a while and every little fucking thing drives me insane.
There's some things that drive me insane, not that one.
Wait, I think she is lying. Let's do that. Let's do that conversation for another 2 hours.
I think you're lying. I know you're lying. No, I think my point is I'm trying to make
get out of my head.
No.
Lauren's just one of the fellas. Leave him alone.
I'm trying to make the comparison of the way you feel when somebody says that you're actually a man is probably the way Buck felt when someone said that he was a woman, even though like he is or was female.
What I'm getting at is there are a lot of things that we are born as in life that we're actually uncomfortable with, but for some reason in this one sphere of life, we're really, really accommodating for it. really accommodating for
That's
people.
right. You're right. In this time, we are overcompensating for it. Number one, the world needs to know, and the world does know, I still have a vagina. I did not get a penis put on. So I could have that argument. I did learn to be comfortable with my female part. Okay. I got my.
That's so interesting to me.
I did.
Sorry.
I learned to do that for many reasons. One being that the penis was not what I wanted. I want a penis. I want something that I can use and work with, and that wasn't what was going to be given to me. So I'm like, I might as well keep my vagina. It's pretty awesome. So you see what I mean? Like, I had to learn how to deal with something that is not male, right? And I had to learn to walk the world with that, which was not easy, but I did it. I pushed through it, and I did it without forcing other people to accept my space. If they didn't, I would just go to the other way, and then eventually people just were like, Buck's a cool dude.
I don't know if you had this feeling, but it seems like so Lauren used the word like people call you a girl. I think that as cis people, if I am a cis person, if Lauren is a cis person, who knows? But like as cis people, I think that when we hear people talk about our gender identity, it's hard to imagine an incongruence with the gender identity and the gender expression, because I don't know what the fuck that feels like. But it seems like when we talk about things like race or other types of statuses, we don't have this like really strong internal model for what that should be. Whereas when it comes to gender, it seems like there is a really strong internal model for what your like sex should be. So like when we talk about like, people will talk about like transracial people, like I want to be treated like a black person, I want to be treated like that. I think that for people that are experiencing hardcore gender dysphoria, there is a bit of social dysphoria where you want to be treated as a woman, you want to be treated as a man, but that's not it. There's another like really important component to where like, if you had a trans person that was locked on an island and they never associated with another person ever, but there were like mirrors or they could look down and see themselves, there would still be this like really intensely kind of disgusting or disassociated or uncomfortable feeling with their body, because it's not just about being treated like a man or treated like a woman, it's about having like the actual sexual expression of that as well. And that seems to be unique to gender, that doesn't exist with like race or other things.
Do you not think that someone like Michael Jackson, who like went all the way to get surgery to change their skin color, would not be disgusted looking at his body in the mirror?
Yeah, but I think I think he had body dysphoric issues, and I think you can argue that people that do like the excessive like facial surgeries and everything, that these people have issues too. But I'm just saying that it seems like they're like Michael Jackson stuff. My understanding is that started when he got his first really bad burn, when he did that Pepsi commercial and his face got fucked, and then he went down the road of reconstructive surgeries. And once you started cosmetic surgery, it's really hard to stop for a lot of people. But it seems like there's something fundamentally baked into us about our gender identity that's really hard to get away from.
No, that's true. That's why I question a lot of what's going on today, because a lot of the trans people don't even want to transition like me anymore. They don't want to be passing as male or female. They say I have passing privilege. I'm like, privilege? Do you know how I go to the gym, I work out, you know what I mean? I do so much to look this way. It's not a privilege. I really make myself look this way. So the newer generation doesn't necessarily want to pass in this gender way, right? So what does that even mean?
Yeah, it almost sounds like you're saying we're making it too easy.
On some level.
You're saying if you want to be part of the old guard, you want to be a real trans person, then we have to keep this obstacle pretty high, and you got to fucking jump over it. Yes,
I do that, and that's why I distinguish myself from them and me, because I actually have dysphoria. I actually have a disorder. They don't even want to acknowledge it as a disorder. They want to think it's actually normal. It's not. What I have is not normal. I would give anything to have been born male, and I still would. I hate being trans. It's not fun. It's not cool. It's not hip. It's none of the above.
What about having been born female but with no dysphoria?
Great. Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Either one.
I would have chosen that too. But I didn't get that. I got dysphoria. And so my point being is I had to go through all of this in order to be a comfortable person in the world. That's why I don't relate to what's happening today. When they say you don't need dysphoria to be trans, then you're not trans. You're something else. Because that's exactly what transgender and transsexual are. We deal with dysphoric feelings and we have a disorder.
Okay, well, Nick is alluding to the social benefits of transitioning and saying it's a way to basically just get a boost. You get to be the bully against all your bullies all of a sudden, a total power reversal. Do you see that as like a primary reason young people are transitioning today, or is there why do you think?
Well, that's a good point.
Why do you think these fake trans people are transitioning?
Fake trans people. Well, I think kids, I think the younger generation, they do see a benefit, especially young girls. I mean, I had puberty. I had girl puberty. It's horrible. It's not fun. I mean, I think it's different than male puberty on some level. And so, when you start growing boobs and you start getting sexualized and all these things start coming at you at a young age, it can actually create dysphoria, and it can create another way of, if I was just a dude, things would be easier. So yeah, on some level, I do think a lot of the young girls are being told that it's easier to be male. And I won't lie that my life did change, but that wasn't why I did it. But my life has changed drastically being a male. I'm treated differently. I walk the world differently. I have totally different privileges to walk around. It's an actual real thing, but it's not why I did it. But I would say that I think some people think if I just become a dude, life will be easier.
Well, I think they're driven there, right? Like that's the issue. I know it's going to come up in a later question. I don't want to jump ahead too far, but I mean that's the socio-cultural issue we're dealing with right now. Is not I'm not speaking for anybody else in the panel, but I think most of us probably don't give a fuck what people do when they're an adult. Mm-hmm. But I think where the issues come in is when you have a kid who's 14 years old and saying, I'm really unsure of myself. I don't really know. Or I was reading a thread the other day. It was like, oh, this person wears hoodies, which is gender nonconforming clothing. It's like, holy shit. If a hoodie it means you're trans, like, I don't even know what the hell the limit is. It's this for lack of a, it's a popular term right now, but it's this grooming, and it doesn't have to do with trying to have sex with kids in this instance. It has to do with implanting an ideology in their head with shifting them towards this particular thing. And fucking like it or not, there's a bunch of weirdos out there who really want to do this to someone else. They want someone else to be, I don't know if they need someone to be, a partner in their struggle or whatever it is. But again, and I think a lot of society is like this, especially now, where they're like, I don't care what you do. I care what you do to my kid. But I do have to say one thing to Mr. Destiny. I have to take issue with one thing you said, which was that racial issue, like race may not be as strong of a bond as gender. As a black man, I'm just offended that you have never listened to NWA, and you do not know the struggle, and you do not know the serious identity that race brings with it. Nice. And I implore you to read the book of Matthew Harris, which is all about racial identity and being basically in tune and in touch with one's race.
Based. I never said that racial bonds can't be strong. I'm just saying I don't think we have an internal identity of a race as much as we seem to have an internal identity of a gender. Or if we do...
Again,
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
I'm now trans because I'm stepping on you on the way up. I'm going to send you the dissertation of Matthew Harris, which will argue the exact opposite. And the man is a brilliant scholar.
Gotcha.
All right. This one goes to Lauren. Whatever you were going to say, save it till after this. If a key way to avoid cancellation, we're still on translation. By the way, I can hear the Tumblr people screaming at the validity of transl culture being in response to the transphobia that they're suffering around the world and the internet. So if anybody wants to speak on that next, please do. Just representing their issues. If a key way to avoid cancellation is to cancel someone else, does that create a feedback loop where we have to express increasing amounts of outrage in order to stay safe? If so, how can we untangle, de-escalate, or otherwise stop this dynamic?
Yeah, obviously, I think when we think of cancellation, half the time people get canceled, it's just for vague associations and not jumping in on the dog pile. Why are you still friends with this person? You didn't condemn this person. I've been asked that my whole life, especially being in the right wing. If someone's like a degree more right wing than me, where's the condemnation, right? And of course, that humans are selfish and they're fighting for that tiny slice of the pie in the media circle that they want to keep, and they'll try to stay alive till the very end, no matter how many corpses of friends and fellow coworkers in this industry they have to step on. And it's more stepping on people. That just seems to be the case, unfortunately. I don't know how we can stop that cycle, because it seems to be the cycle of natural human selfishness.
Anybody else have ideas to de-escalate, untangle, otherwise stop this vicious circle, cancellation?
You
Well, I
did it,
think
Jake. They
speaking
stopped.
out-
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
Speaking out on it. It's very important that we all speak out on it, because if we don't speak out on it and we don't say it, I speak out. I'm like, you're not canceling me. As much as you want to cancel me, I say it all the time. Go ahead, try to cancel me. Do it. And they can. How do you get canceled if you're not going to let somebody cancel you?
Well, if you get banned from all your shit, that's how you get canceled.
I don't care. Keep banning me.
Well, some of us need to make money. Some of us got jobs, bud.
It's my job. This is actually my job too. But
Okay, but let. I mean, I think what Destiny is saying is that
Please translate for me. Communication is a huge problem of mine. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually one of my strengths. What he's saying is that this has cost him a lot of money.
No, it's not funny. I'm sorry. It's actually not funny.
Yeah, that's not funny.
One.
Fuck you.
It's not. It's
much money.
No, but for reals, it's not funny and it's gross, and that's why I actually really it disturbs me beyond belief. Because like I said earlier, why are we not having conversations? Why is everybody so goddamn scared to talk about things that you're not agreeing with, or you know what I mean? Why is everybody?
Money. I think it comes back to money. Honestly, I think that there's making money and it being silenced, and money is also speech in a way. Like if you have enough money, then you can just make a documentary, you can start your own streaming platform, you can do whatever you want. Like you can still speak if you're J.K. Rowling.
That's right.
But for everybody else, I think that cancel culture ultimately all cancel culture is really about money, I think, at the end of the day.
I think we have to be intentional.
Yeah.
I agree with what Buck said. We got to speak out about this stuff, because there are some people out there that are just giant fucking weepy bitches who think that cancellation is something you should do, who think that flagging shit because they get their feelings hurt is something you should do, who think that they should use legal processes to go after people because they don't like what they said, or something like that. And those people are giant fucking sacks of garbage, and also whiny pussies.
I like you, dude.
Anyone specifically?
I wanted to change my opinion on this.
Or is that just a general?
Pure coincidence.
I wanted to change my opinion on this, actually, Dick. I think this cancel culture thing will naturally end in 20 to 30 years. And there'll be an extreme backlash, because you're going to have all of these kids taking their parents and schools to courts over transitions that they regret. And I think it's going to be like a really bad hardcore backlash. Like,
well, that might be true,
LGBT
and
community.
maybe we can avoid future cancellation by trying to stay on the right side of history here. But I think when I wrote the fucking question, I was asking, is there anything we can proactively do about this? And you're saying just survive for 30 years.
No, actually, okay, wait, no.
No. You're saying let's just throw a bunch of kids under the bus. We'll let them carve up their fucking bodies and take hormones, and then once they get old enough to realize what a bad idea that was, they'll stop it, and then we can start crawl out of our holes and start making money again.
Listen, I'm pretty black-pilled. But I mean, the other option is
children, Lauren.
It's like trolley question. You can have this go on for like 100 more years, or we can sacrifice a lot of children right now, hardcore, just like transition the shit out of everyone, and then this will be like a Band-Aid off. It'll get canceled real quick.
Okay, so your solution is to transition more kids.
That's not my solution.
Drag them screaming to the surgery clinic.
How long have conservatives been waiting for that backswing to the left? How many decades now?
True. Even my 30-year solution is pure conservative copium.
Remember when multiculturalism destroyed Rome? It's going backwards any day now. I'm sure it's coming.
So be rich.
The pendulum's gonna stop at some point. It's gonna stop and start going back. It's right on the cusp.
What will that look like to you, Nick? The pendulum sliding back.
The pendulum sliding back?
Yes.
We actually, the real answer to that is it will be absolutely fucking terrifying. It will be right now on overdrive, because when we see institutional power at risk anywhere in any institution throughout history, what you see is a massive ramp up of institutional power leading to that sea change. And so what you will get is an inflation of cancel culture. You will get an inflation of this hyperbolic focus on these issues, the overinflation of this issue. I mean, just when you go by statistics of gender dysphoria and you see just how few people it actually affects, and to think about how big of an issue it's being made now, but multiply it by 20, 30, 50 times what it is, and that's when you'll see the pendulum start to get to that peak, and we're not even there. That's what's fucking terrifying about it. I know we were joking about dragging the kids to the thing, but all the dystopian writers have this idea that again, this is a future question, but that the state will take charge of the children, and it will be a thing, and the parents will all, kind of accept it after a while, because that'll be the thing that happens. But when the state takes charge of the children, I mean, who's to stop the transitioning, and where does that come from? That's the true answer of where it goes. It's every fucking time, and it's horrifying.
I think we will get there. The next question, Buck, I'd like to present this to you first.
Wait, I had one.
Go ahead,
I don't know. I mean, are you sure that's okay if I say something? I mean, it's my fucking
cool.
Okay.
Everybody
Moderate his ass, Dick. Get him.
Okay. I just wanted to say, I think another thing that is happening is kids are being raised with social media, and social media as a concept, as a way to exist in the world, is you take yourself and then you have like a fake self that you just construct. And so I think in a weird way, even without gender, kids are just learning that you present yourself by constructing a self that is just kind of what you wish you were like, and then blast that out to the world. And we all do that as adults. And then so it's really hard to convince them probably not to transition, because that's what a lot of what transitioning is. But we're all already kind of like trans in a weird way anyway, where we have so much, we have the technology and medical stuff to present ourselves more how we want, but we also have the social media technology to construct like a fake self and put it out there.
I think to kind of vibe off that, because that's what we're doing, we're vibing here. I do believe that everybody on the planet that has like their perfect system detailing why society is falling apart never seems to include that technology is a huge reason. And I actually super agree with that. I think that one of the big issues is kind of going along with something I said earlier. Like kids today aren't allowed to be stupid and grow, because kids today can get like infinite amounts of validation on social media that we never had before. Like back in my day, like maybe you had like a few close friends that commented on like your Zanga or your MySpace or your LiveJournal, and like that was it. But now, like if somebody makes fun of me as a 17-year-old, I can take this motherfucker, blow him up on Twitter, and actually destroy his fucking life, and then maybe raise $20,000 on GoFundMe afterwards for a new dress or something, right? Like the amount of validation that kids are able to get on social media is probably insanely unhealthy, because you probably don't want to ultra reinforce the crazy shit that people believe when they're in their teens. But it seems like we're able to do that with social media today more than we ever were in the past.
This is something I wanted to build on too, with just ease of access. Like if you went to a high school classroom and you asked kids, like, what do you want to change about yourself? Everyone would have something, whether it be like race, hair color, weight, mental abilities. And the fact that, gender is one of those things that you can just walk into a room in the school and change instantly. Like they would probably walk into that room if it were any of those other things they could pick as well. But it just happens that there's that counselor office for gender. There's those surgeries available for gender. There's all of that support for that one thing. So it's ease of access to this one quick thing they can change and get a ton of attention for. What were you laughing about, MrGirl? That was so funny.
I just this the idea of like a high school kid being like, I want to change my mental ability.
True. I mean,
was funny.
Maybe not that one.
If only they figured out a way you could change your weight. Bach, here was the question. Is gender theory undergoing rapid mutation on social media and infecting the minds of teenagers like a virus? Or are we witnessing a genuine scientific and cultural awakening?
Oh, no, it's a virus, 100%. I do believe kids are being taught this. I think that what we were just talking about, social media, all of them. I mean, I'm actually next to a large amount of detransitioners. And if you don't know what that is, those are mostly youngsters who transitioned and then realized after they did it that they didn't make a big mistake. And that's so profound. I don't know if you all understand how profound that is. There are girls who cut their breasts off and maybe even grew a beard and then realized, oh my God, I'm not really a guy. I actually really want to be a girl. So that being said, I do think on some level this is really a problem within our society and within social media and within a way that we're all just sort of like pushing people to do this, as opposed to it. That's why I said people don't have gender dysphoria anymore. They're just self-IDing. That says something different to me. Why would anybody want to be trans? As if it's just this really great thing to be, right? So it's like, I want to have cancer, so I'm going to have cancer. And I don't really have cancer, but I actually have cancer. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but have you seen like 3D
could have all the
printed
good parts
cars?
of cancer.
You're not talking about Mr. Medical, are you?
Well, like, okay, so like they'll get like a shitty car, like a and then they'll strip the top of it off, and then these guys will 3D print the parts to like a Bugatti Chiron and lay it over. It's still a fucking Ford Escort or whatever, but it's a Bugatti Chiron. That's what's being done with the trans thing. It's like, no, this is not the supercharged vehicle you think it is, but they dress it up in this enticing sort of shell, and I'm speaking simplistically, but that's the ultimate effect.
That's why I don't think it's societal, and I don't think it's just this new way and we're all moving forward like that. No way. I do not think that in any way, shape, or form, because I see how the kids are, and it's mostly youngsters doing this. Where are all the adults in the room? Why are there not a lot of adults, older, transitioning? Why is it all a very young generation of
Because
kids?
it seems like you guys are all hated now. Nobody wants to talk to the older part of the trans movement anymore. You guys are all you use bad words like transsexual, which is basically a slur these days. Yeah, sorry guys.
Should I just be Brianna Wu for everyone?
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of a circle jerk here. I'll be your Brianna Wu. All right. Well, I think
no, fuck that. Hold on. No, fuck you. You're not going to be the progressive argument.
Whoa. No, get out of here.
If you actually believe what you're about to say, you don't have to fucking pretend that you're playing a part. If you disagree,
John,
you have a genuine disagreement.
So why are there not all these adults transitioning? They're, if they had the ability when they were younger, when they were in school to transition, they would have. Maybe if they had the social acceptance to do it then, they would have. But now they're set in their ways. They're too old, especially trying to go on hormones when you're older. You can't stop a lot of that stuff that you went through in puberty. Whereas if you take hormone blockers when you're, 11, 12, you can really, really actually be quite similar to the other sex you're trying to transition to. So maybe it was just lack of access for the older people.
I don't think you think it's just lack of access, but that this has to be.
I don't think any of this, but yeah.
I'm gonna.
You don't think any of that's true?
Maybe.
You don't think any of it's true at all? I mean, it has to be somewhat true. There have to be.
No, okay, hold on.
Okay,
this is the problem. Conservatives are just as much to blame as people on the left, okay? Here's the issue, okay? And I talk about this all the time. The problem is that when you don't have anybody that's willing to be reasonable, then nobody is going to be reasonable. That's the issue that you run into, okay? So when we look at, trans people, who are the group of people saying, hey, trans people are real, we should alleviate their problems as much as possible? That might even mean some responsible exploration in high school with puberty blocks or something maybe, but we should be careful. We need to make sure that we're having challenging conversations with these children. We're not just force-feeding kids drugs to make them trans, right? Nobody has that opinion. On the left, you've got people saying you should be able to identify as deer, as activists online or on college campuses, and on the right, you've got people saying that, I don't think trans people are real at all. So, when those are the only two positions that exist, and when society tends to culturally shift left over time, it's not surprising that it's going to move more and more and more extremely far to the left. You can't go from screeching for decades, I think trans people are fake, it's bullshit, to being okay, maybe trans people are real, but can they please not be real until they're 18? Motherfucker, you lost that fight already because you never wanted to hold that position. So, yeah, when you have people that are unwilling to occupy reasonable spaces, then, the conversation will only ever move one way.
But
do you think you might have a bit of brain rot from the internet and people in the real world are not having just those two positions and there's a bit of nuance there?
I wish that was the case. Really. That was the argument that I used 5 years ago when I argued against crazy alt-righters and stuff online, that it was only online or that this stuff was only blah, blah, blah. But no, I think that it was only online. Now it's in a lot of colleges, and now it is the most corporate safe thing to do. So it kind of leaks into a lot of our entertainment as well. And it's slowly permeating all the culture because you've got this huge tech backing that's never existed
before. Every college, every high school in America are telling your kids transition at 9 years old right now.
She's being Brianna Wu because she's fucking don't respond to her. Don't.
He's saying that we're highly polarized, and that is obviously true, and increasingly so. And so I think we need to be less polarized as a way to get out of this dynamic. So Nick, some of the ways that you talk about this feels...
He's transphobic. Say it. He is a transphobe.
Okay, but what's weird is that I don't think you. I don't think
I think he is. Call him one.
I don't. I think you're transphobic. No, I don't think you actually are transphobic. You come across as like a pretty understanding guy, which I think is why. So I'm left leaning, but I enjoy your streams partly because when push comes to shove, you actually are able to empathize with people of different backgrounds, races, orientations, identities, or whatever on all sides of the political spectrum. But when you're but then you start calling people like pussies and like I know you're kind of joking, but you're kind of not joking. But I feel like I think we need to develop a way to disagree with people without completely shitting all over them, which I kind of think is what Destiny's getting at with saying that it's not reasonable to be that polarized and that dismissive. I guess I don't agree with. I don't give a fuck about what other adults do. I just want to protect the kids. I think that the way we empathize with kids and care about their well-being, we need to expand to all adults.
Yep.
I just don't. I don't think it's right to. Well, yes, Nick. I don't think it's right to.
Because that's the whole purpose of being an adult is those shields that are put over you as you go up through becoming 18, which is an arbitrary number that we've decided is adulthood. I get it, but as you mature through your life, there are various protections as your brain is developing, as you're going through all of these things, and a whole bunch of smart people have for some reason landed on this number. But we do a lot of protection for the purposes of switching from concrete thinking to abstract thinking, from being able to deal with criticism, from being able to recognize the difference between a joke and an actual insult.
But there's overwhelming evidence that many adults lack these abilities. And so you could say they should have them because we decided that by the time you're 18, you should be able to do these things. But most people just can't. And I'm not saying that they need to be shielded from criticism or shielded from their own decisions, but I still think we should afford them empathy that you seem to be willing to afford a blue-haired, trans, mask, lesbian, whatever, dear gender, 14-year-old that you're not willing to afford a 24-year-old. And I just think there's a dismissiveness that makes it work. Like there's no way to back down or de-escalate from anybody's positions if the de-escalation means you have to step toward the people who are calling you like a retard.
Yeah, but I think you're either misunderstanding or misstating my position. I will afford the same level of empathy to any particular person. I don't care.
Child or adult. You sound softer or more caring when you talk. I mean, I'm not saying it should be the same level of empathy, but there is a dismissiveness when we talk about like, what about adults who are getting roped into this or pushed into this, and everybody's just kind of like, well, fuck them.
Well, okay. I don't want anybody roped into anything. The reality, though, is that children are more vulnerable because we're putting them consistently into institutions where authorities are removing them from the people who have the actual onus to educate them on these subjects, and they're taking that on. We're giving that to the state largely, sometimes to private schools, and sometimes to even small group tutors or clubs or whatever it is. But as we abrogate our responsibility to our kids, and we give up our parenting in some way to something else, we need to maintain control over those groups. That's why children are important. But adults aren't being put into a school where they don't have an opportunity to turn around and walk the fuck away, get in a car, and drive off. A kid can't. You can't leave. But as an adult, you can. You could turn around, you could drive, you could take a bus, you can get a golf cart, you can have a homeless person piggyback you. It doesn't fucking matter. You can find some way to get away in large. Again, speaking in generalities, yes, there are people who will not be able to leave situations, but we can deal with margins on the margins.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, don't you think that a lot of the people in the school who are teaching kids that they can, be female deer or whatever it is, are they're also like roped into their belief systems. They're also surrounded by a net of people who don't want them to change their beliefs and who will get mad at them if they do, and also conservatives. Like there are people watching this right now who won't even like the way that you are being somewhat conciliatory in your response to what I'm saying. There are people who are probably in your chat being like, shut this motherfucker down. He wants to groom kids, right? And so we're all being pressured to just go further and further and further. And I feel like that cancel culture is not just going after people who aren't far left enough. By default, by making the left appear so disgusting to the right with cancel culture, there's a reverse cancel culture. And now it's a quieter type of cancellation, but I think both sides are being pushed further and further, and it has to grow. It's like the stock market. Like, it has to always be expanding.
Something that I think is important too, like, do we believe that trans people are real? Because if we do believe that trans people are real and that dysphoria is real, like, shouldn't children be able to get help for that? Because my understanding, Buck can speak if you disagree, but my understanding is that, like, there might be kids that think they're trans when they're growing up, but they're not. But if you are trans, you definitely know around when you hit puberty that you're trans. And to not be able to address it then, or to not have the ability to address it then, because of, ironically enough, an intervention of the state to say that doctors can't talk to you, parents can't talk to you, that there's nobody that you can turn to, that seems to be bad if you believe that trans people are a real phenomenon.
Well, yeah, you can't just 100% cut it off, because there are, and I don't like to call them trans kids, I call them dysphoric kids, because they might not necessarily be trans. They could be gay or something. They're just dealing with some dysphoric stuff here. But the problem for me in transitioning young people at such an early age with medication, I socially transitioned on some level as a youngster, but the problem for me is immediate medication. And medication is not a positive thing. It can destroy, especially what they're giving these young kids. And it is irreversible. Whether or not, whatever any of you think here, I know for a fact the medication they are giving these young kids is irreversible. And so that being said, it is a very small space. What I have is not as big as what the world is seeing. It is extremely small, and it's a disorder that's very small. The trans people you're seeing today, I think on some level, are being told they're trans by other people. It's happening in colleges, by the way. Massive amount of young girls are transitioning in college right now and going along with it. And then when you detransition in college, you get mobbed on, you get jumped on, you get called all kinds of bad things. So what you said earlier is true. Once you desist from the group, you're considered a bad person. So it's all over the place. There isn't like a very specific kind of road that's happening. I went through a structure. There's no structure anymore. And I find that to be extremely dangerous if you're taking a medical space. If you're just socially transitioning, that's fine. And I do think there are young kids who have dysphoria. There's no doubt about it. But we're willy-nilly we're just here, take some drugs, and maybe you're trans, and have top surgery at 13. And all of those things are extremely dangerous when we're not really monitoring what this actually means. And we have no long-term studies. How can you do such a drastic change with no long-term studies?
I definitely agree with that. But like for things like puberty blockers, at the very least, like if you have access to like gender clinics or whatever, this should probably be on the table for people that are perhaps dysphoric as children, no?
Well, I'm going to kind of disagree with that in a sense that, no, I don't think you should immediately do that. I think the kid needs to go through some therapy before they start taking that. But they're not doing that. They're literally telling parents, and I have firsthand experience with this, oh, your kid is trans. They say they're trans. You better give your kid some this. You all know this suicide thing. Like, if you don't do that, your kid's going to commit suicide. That is actually horrifying that they say that to parents. I'm a parent.
Sure.
So I'm a parent of a 9-year-old. I know exactly.
Wait a second.
Real quick, hold on this, just on the puberty blockers.
I'm gonna add to what you're saying.
Okay, go.
Yeah, what Destiny's asking you.
No, now you're done. Okay, what I'm saying is
should they be on the table at all? You're criticizing the way they're on the table.
Because now we've kind of gone to the other position where it's like some people abuse it, so fuck all of it. I do agree that.
No, I don't.
I do agree that some people. I do agree that some people abuse it, but like, if you are a trans woman. Depending on the cards you were dealt, male puberty fucking sucks. You're looking at $50,000 facial feminization surgery. You're looking at shoulders that aren't going to fit your whole life. You're fucked. You're 6'2". Like, there is so much to overcome if you go through an incredibly masculine puberty. It seems kind of sad to say that, well, because there are some therapists that I've talked to detransitioners too, and one of them told me that on their first meeting they were declared trans and issued drugs. Like, first meeting. Right. I agree with you. That's insane. That's fucking wild. But just because some people abuse it or fuck with it, I don't think means that we should say no puberty blockers whatsoever. I think that we need to have like a better process by which to help like children if they go on that journey I do agree that right now in some places it goes too far. Yeah.
Everybody, what's your minimum age for puberty blockers? Ideal conditions, everything's done exactly to your specifications, therapy, whatever. Mine is 18.
Well, you've already gone through puberty at 18.
Yeah, they're done at that point.
They don't need it.
Okay, so
now you
then
go straight
mine
to
is
testosterone.
100. I'm saying I'm against it. I'm against blocking puberty. Okay, everybody say what? Everybody cast your lot.
Okay,
Destiny.
so okay, Destiny.
I would say that ideally, if we have good processes in place, like responsible ones where children are having challenging conversations with therapists like they should be, then whatever age puberty could start or begins to matter. So that could be as early as 9 or 10 or 11, or as late as 12 or 13. It just depends. But like if I accept trans people, which they are, then if you are a trans woman especially, avoiding male puberty is like one of the most important things you could possibly do.
Nick, what do you think? Puberty blockers, are they on the table or not?
Steven says
Fuck
9.
off.
You got a rebuttal?
This might
No,
be the
of course
myths
not.
that Mr. Girl's talking about.
Again, in some like
should be nicer.
beautiful, perfect world where we have perfect therapy and perfectly therapeutic children, sure, but we don't. And
What age? What age?
no, I'm saying no age. I say no.
But he's
Are you
explaining.
saying, no. I'm saying in the ideal world, in your hypothetical, you can have whatever. You can have a team of the best therapists in the country telling you.
26.
Okay.
Right
Is
after
that a genuine answer, or are you avoided the question because you're
Well,
scared?
no, he said he doesn't believe in puberty blockers. So that.
Yeah, I don't think they should ever be implemented.
Yeah, but when you started explaining why you don't believe in puberty blockers, you were saying that the way they're delivered is not ideal. So
I was speaking in arguendo. Assuming Destiny's argument that there were some way to actually do this, I was speaking,
Okay.
but I don't hold that position.
What if there were?
There isn't.
Nick, what do you think of the trade-off that
You don't have to
Destiny's
answer. You
talking
don't have to
about?
answer the hypothetical because you don't believe it, that the conditions are possible.
No, I don't believe the conditions are possible,
What if they were?
but they aren't.
What if they were?
Yeah.
They won't be.
Look, see, abstract thinking. It doesn't always kick in at 25.
What if people live? What do you think the age of consent should be if people live to be 200?
If people live to be 200, but people don't live to be 200 right now.
Well, yeah, but what if they could? Are you
The
able
age
to
of consent
imagine? Are you able
is,
to picture a world where people can live to be 200?
Yeah, sure. But the age of consent is set by
What would you
state
do
law.
if you grew a third arm right now? What would you do?
Jerk off while showing.
Okay, so
guys that I'm
so you
not.
are capable of answering hypothetical questions based on the impossible. So for this
I'm
question,
a lawyer. Of course, I
asking-
can answer hypothetical questions.
So then, why aren't you answering this one?
Because I don't think it's worth entertaining. I don't believe in gender or in puberty blockers at any age under any hypothetical.
What about the trade-off that Destiny was talking about, where if you believe in a trans person, them going through puberty would be horrible and it would be irreversible? In that
Yeah.
edge case, what do you think about that?
You know what? There are people who are born with things that are very horrible, and I am very sorry for it. But I do not believe in puberty blockers, even in edge cases. I just don't. And I know that it's like we've set up this cool thing where we're talking about, well, there's too much extremes and maybe we need to consider the middle. But I don't think that it's valuable to say this because we go through all sorts of there are all sorts of issues that you're born into, socioeconomic issues that cannot be and will never be solved by society or technology. And it sucks, right? Like it sucks that I was born white when I'm a black man. It really does suck because I tried to get into the rap game and I ended up on fucking YouTube.
Wait, but this doesn't. Okay, when we talk about society,
wait.
hold on. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't know why people say this. Life sucks. When we're talking about societal prescriptions, that is the least profound statement I've ever heard in my entire life. Life sucks. No shit, life sucks. But like, even of the examples you give, like, well, you know, some people are born into shitty socioeconomic systems. Yeah, no shit. That's why you have a progressive tax bracket and welfare. That's why you have
No, but
Section 8
those
housing.
don't work.
Like,
Those literally
I'm
don't
saying
work.
that I'm saying that the goal of having any sort of governance is usually to like address some of these imbalances, right?
Only
Do I
if
get
you're
to
Tommy.
give my opinion here?
Yeah, I just have a couple
No.
more
Like-
questions for. I have a couple questions for Nick just to follow up.
Can I answer the
Lauren,
question
no.
everyone got to answer first?
Yes, yeah. But after this quick
Holy
quick couple questions. Is Jake? Do you want to make a ruling?
Oh yeah, Lauren, go for it.
Thank you. Okay. Well, now it feels like I'm just like getting a pity, like in here. All right.
You're getting it because you're a woman.
Life sucks, Lauren.
I don't think you should give any person, let alone a child, puberty blockers until you can prove pretty confidently that they are actually dysphoric. And one of the best ways to prove that they are actually dysphoric is for them to go through puberty. So I don't really think you can prove that someone has persisting dysphoria without them going through puberty.
Okay,
I don't want to give you insulin because I need to prove that you're diabetic. We're gonna wait till your toes fall off and then see what happens.
Whoa. Diabetes and gender dysphoria are very
yeah, they are, but there are probably ways through talking to children we can figure out.
You can't know it's retarded though, because you don't give someone insulin until you find out they're diabetic.
Sure, but I mean, we do give kids SSRIs. We do give kids medication for anxiety and ADHD. Should all of that be illegal as well? We don't cut into their brains to see if they have an ADHD brain.
There isn't like an age point, unless maybe I'm incorrect about this, but there isn't an age point where it's like one of the distinctive factors in deciding are they going to have persisting ADHD
It is
or
absolutely.
not.
I will say, as a parent of a child with ADHD, the age is actually incredibly important because if they do have these types of problems, it's recommended to start as early as possible. Because if you do have a kid that's like severely ADHD and you're like, fuck it, I'll wait till he's 18, his life might be fucked by then because they have no friends.
But then what if it was a cost? Wait. What if there was a cost to putting them on early if you're wrong?
There is a cost, right? When you're talking about amphetamines long term, you've got potential heart side effects. You've got like other weird like mind shit that can happen.
But it ain't like
mood
fucking
swings and things like all of these things that we're putting. It ain't like puberty blockers. I mean, like arguably, like some amphetamines or medications for ADHD can have more like serious side effects than puberty blockers.
And what if the cost is that they were potentially they were more likely to not have ADHD if you had let them go over this certain age gap, rather than you deciding to medicate early and then them definitely having
these
ADHD.
are the hard decisions that
That's
I
not
think
a hard decision.
It absolutely is a hard. I hate that you're a parent. You're saying this. You're fucking dishonest fuck. Okay, it is absolutely hard to make these decisions about your children, which is why it should be kept between the parents and the doctor, and not some fucking loser that's like, I don't think they should be legal until they're 18. Fuck you. I don't want you telling me what the fuck I do with my kid until he's 18. That should be a decision between parents.
That should be.
There's certain things.
No, hold on. If there are better ways to do this. None of us disagree with that. So stop with the virtue signaling of like, these systems are high. We all agree that there are problems. We all agree.
We're all taking an indefensible position.
No, hold on. That is not true. Your position might be indefensible. Don't project. Okay, hold on. Let me finish my thing. Let me finish my point.
You actually believe you should be able to do whatever you want to your kids before they're 18?
No, I think that it should be a medically informed. It should be a medically informed decision where the government can't arbitrarily restrict saying, oh, your kid has to be 18 before you can take this fucking drug.
Well, what if your doctor said they want to cut your kid's head off? Like your kid's too unhappy, so we have to chop his head off. Like,
I don't know. If he's a League of Legends player, maybe that's the only route left for him. It depends.
At some point, we have to say, like, no, actually, you can tell doctors they can't do certain things to kids. Like, you don't actually believe that the sanctity of the parent-doctor-child trio. It should be like
when it comes to something like related to like trans issues, probably. When it comes to like chopping their head off, probably not.
Right, but I guess that's my point. Is how close is transitioning to like obviously destructive?
It's at least a few doors down. I think maybe even on the next block.
Okay,
there's a difference between transitioning and chopping people's heads off.
Well, yeah, I would rather get my head cut off than my dick cut off.
What about legitimately? What about transableism, which is a rising, sort of fringe issue for now, but it's the idea that some people believe they're born disabled, and so they get medically disabled. If your child believes that they're born a paraplegic, should you be able to take your child to a doctor and have them snip their spinal cord in their lower vertebra so that they can't walk? Like, should you be able to do that?
The thing is that trans people have existed for as long as we've had like written history. It seems to be the case that there are some people that are born dysphoric. Their brains are wired wrong, or something gets turned on as they're aging that messes their ability to have this congruence with their gender identity and gender expression. And as much as we've tried, conservatives like, oh, well, they just need more therapy, blah, blah, blah. We've tried the conversion camps. We've tried every fucking thing possible. We've had some kids that are assigned a certain sex at birth that they weren't because of a botched surgery. And it doesn't seem like you can just socialize somebody out of their gender. So if it's impossible to socialize somebody out of something, and if we have medical technology to alleviate an issue, why would we not use the medical technology other than to virtue signal?
Do you believe that body dysphoria is limited to gender, though?
It seems to be the case. I haven't heard or seen any convincing arguments or anything to the contrary of that.
What about like guys who like do tons of steroids?
Have you ever met a fat person?
No, body dysphoria can be a thing. I mean, like eating disorders are real, of course, but this is fundamentally different than like trans racialism or trans like genderism or trans whatever, like these other types of things that people say exist. But yeah, I mean, I think people can be
fundamentally different.
Yeah, the way we deal with eating disorders or with somebody like a bodybuilder, big orexia. You guys heard of that? a woman wanting bigger breasts. Let's say your 13-year-old daughter is realizing she's going through puberty and she's like, she's not going to have the huge breasts that she wanted. And she's really upset about it. All of her friends are blossoming and she wants to kill herself. So should you get her implants or put her on hormones so that she develops further? Like, obviously, I think the answer to this for everybody in the panel is probably no. That would be weird. But if she wants to turn into a man, then we're like, well, yeah, maybe we should consider it. To me, it's much more reasonable to give your daughter breast implants than your son. I think, but I would be against both. But for some reason, there's something very like protected and special about the way we think about gender dysphoria. But I think of it as the same as all dysphoria.
Well, but I mean, like, but there are some forms of that we would accept. So, for instance, like, if you were a woman and you had to get like a double mastectomy because of breast surgery, we would say, yeah, you should be able to have like reconstructive surgery to rebuild your breast. Like, that's not necessarily. Or if you're like the victim of like some sort of horrific thing that leaves you disfigured or with some scar, like, yeah, you do get cosmetic surgery.
That's true, but there's a big difference between that. Feeling like something you had was taken away from you, and you're trying to reconstruct
I think the difference
your life.
is that, like,
and a 13-year-old that just wants mommy milkers.
Sure,
like
but I think the difference seems to
be
is that, like, when it comes to things like eating disorders and stuff, there seems to be some underlying issue that can be treated without like saying the person has to be. I know you think that all trans people can be talked out of being trans, but there are people that are way more motivated than you that have been trying to do it that haven't.
Don't tell me what I think.
Okay, what were you going to say?
Don't ever tell me what I think.
Okay, I can't imagine doing that. My bad. Go ahead.
I can't. Thank you. I think that anorexic people can't just be talked out of it. You have to learn how to cope with it. So yes, you could lose a few pounds, as Nick would suggest, or you can just cope with it. Cope with the feeling that your body's not going to look and feel right to you. And so I think it's worth trying to talk trans people out of being dysphoric, especially trans kids. But if that doesn't work, I think it's also worth just saying, like Nick said, kind of like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks that your body is not the way you want it to be.
Why would you gatekeep them from like medical interventions that can help? Just so that you can feel.
But here, I need to say something about the puberty blockers. I don't think you understand. It's not all perfectly yeah. It's all great. There are some horrible side effects to these puberty blockers. One of them being genital growth. Genital growth is very important for the older when you get older and you need to, let's say, get a vagina. You're not getting that. Your penis has now been stunted. This is actually true and real. Not only that, your bone density. There are so many layers of health problems that will exist once you put a child on puberty blockers, and they are medicated for life now. As a person who struggled in my gender and struggled in my life and struggled with boobs and struggled with female anatomy, I would say that I think that is the best thing that ever happened to me, that I wasn't put on puberty blockers. So this idea that a woman's going to grow big shoulders and arms and all of that happens. But what's the percentage of that compared to the other people who just kind of deal with their gender dysphoria and move on and get surgery and do that? We do not have enough studies or understanding of what the long-term effects of puberty blockers are on these kids. Why would we do that?
I mean, how do you get the data?
What do you mean? There's tons of data.
No, first of all, there's not tons of data. That is
my
not
friend,
true.
You're wrong. Finland, Sweden have done studies for 20 and 30 years, which they just shut down because they said.
Yeah, so I understand.
Lying.
Hold on, I'm not lying. Okay. There is very limited data. There are some studies, but the idea that there is like this is a new thing, right? I know that
it's not new. It's new in the United States. It's not new in Finland, Sweden, where they've been doing it for 30 years. 30 years.
Can you explain those studies more? Because I'm unfamiliar with it. I think that would help.
Studies in Finland and Sweden that they started, which was to give the children puberty blockers, which they did at 8 years old. They did studies on long-term. They followed these kids from 8 years old all the way till they were adults, 20 to 30 years old. They realized that it was not worth it, that they actually did struggle still with their gender. Some of them desisted from it. So they just shut that down. They no longer give puberty blockers in Finland and Sweden because they said that the actual usage of those is not it's more negative than it is positive. So that's why I'm saying we actually have studies on this. We actually have long-term studies from other kids in other countries, yet we're doing it here. That makes no sense.
I'm gonna look these up. Give me 1 second.
Look it up. Email me and I'll send it all to you.
They are Finnish though. They're barely people.
We have a, I believe, a trans person who wants to join the panel, who I believe is more left-leaning than any of us. Is there room for one more, or what do you guys think?
Excellent.
Sure.
Dick? You're the,
Oh,
you're the
yeah.
captain.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. It's gonna take a second, so just,
I probably got to jump in 15 minutes anyways. Have you ever
Okay.
heard the game Papers, Please? Anyone?
Yeah.
I've heard
I'm
of
gonna
it.
be
Yeah.
playing that with Brittany Venti tonight on stream. You basically get to be an immigration officer and kick people out of your country. Sounds fun.
Are you gonna have feet cams?
Jesus
Honestly, if I wanted
Christ.
to make good money, if I was real
Yeah.
desperate, we'll get the feet
Do it.
cams going. All right. You got to cancel me enough until I'm that broke. That's the only way you're getting the feet pics.
Get on it, squad.
Okay, while we're waiting, serious.
Wait, I had a question.
for-
I had a question for Nick that I've been waiting to
Okay,
ask
good.
for like 10 minutes.
Oh, also, I just want to read this real quick because I know this is true. I've argued this so many times. Hold on, I'm just gonna read it. So part of the reason why Sweden pulled back on this is that there was poor quality / insufficient evidence. The evidence for safety and efficacy of treatments remains insufficient to draw any definitive conclusions, which is exactly what I said. They pulled it back because people don't nod because you said that there was evidence that they didn't work. Okay, what I'm saying is that there was not a lot of long-term
I
data.
said they stopped them.
They
I'm
did
nodding
stop.
because
I don't
I'm
disagree with that.
agreeing
I don't,
you, my friend.
I don't disagree that they did stop them, but there's not like all of this data out here collected longitudinally about puberty blockers. Like it's still
They
in its
have
infancy.
20 to 30 years of
For how many people? Like
30 people. They actually had 30 trans people that they took from the age 8 all the way up until adulthood.
Okay,
Read it.
sure.
If you're looking at it, read it.
I believe you that there is probably a longitudinal study with 30 people that were given puberty blockers, but we
Yes.
have to acknowledge that like there's probably like a little bit more room to study. That's probably not the
100%. I'm not saying we shouldn't study. I'm saying we should study, number one, before we give children puberty
But this
blockers.
is the issue. How you have to give them puberty blockers to study it.
No, you don't. You can actually do it on other ways. You're going to use kids to study. You are actually...
How else do you test
Hold
medication
on.
on children
You are
other than to use
actually-
medication on children?
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
my friend. Use your child. Why don't
Wait,
you
hold
use
on.
your
What is
child?
the alternative? Are you going to give puberty blockers
Whose
to
child
adults?
are we going to use to do that? You're not going to use my child.
That's
Whose
fine.
child
I mean,
is gonna-
that's why you are able to
You're
at will
actually
enroll.
willing to sacrifice children for an actual cause like that?
Wait, you're
Wow,
willing
my
to
friend.
sacrifice children because you're too scared to explore the research?
No, I'm not.
That's what you're saying. You're saying
your life
that maybe
then.
maybe
I'm
puberty
saying-
blockers can work, but I'm not willing to have anybody even be able to be volunteered
No,
for
I'm
any research
not.
like that.
I'm not. I am not willing to
Okay,
put a
then it-
child under the bus.
Sure.
I'm not.
Based.
Then at least say
I'm
that
not.
like you're okay that there's not definitive data out there, and there will never be definitive data out there because it can't
Maybe
be
not.
research.
And maybe
well,
so.
then this is my
somebody
whole
will
original
grow up
point.
like me and actually finally realize they're trans and have a beautiful life. Maybe.
Okay,
they're
well,
just gay kids.
but
Maybe
Buck,
they're
that's
just gay. Maybe they're not even trans.
yeah,
Isn't that
those
a
are all
thought?
those are all possible. But what
Possible.
I think, yeah, but what we're saying is we don't know. So either
That's
we
right,
have
we
to
don't know.
we have to potentially harm kids by giving them puberty
we
blockers,
don't.
or we have to or
That's what we do with all drugs with children. Yes, there is
or
a
we have to
potential harm.
potentially harm them by not giving them
That's
puberty
right.
blockers.
So
Okay.
so for me, I'm gonna tell you, I take the road to not give them.
Clearly,
and
but
to
I
let
think it
them
sounds
go
more
through-
like your real position is that you think it's unethical to even do the research in the first
That's
place.
right. I do.
Okay.
Why didn't we just open with that?
I don't know. I have no idea why we did it. But there we go.
I'm gonna transition so I can get a word in.
Good
this
one.
Conversation. Yeah.
Oh.
Got him. Yeah, I guess we'll just open Destiny's Dr. Mengele office for children to get all this research. Eh? Is that the plan?
Yes.
guess
Oh,
so.
were we going to say anything, or was it just shitty mic night with Lauren
Yeah.
on that? Okay, nice.
Nick, are you
Yeah.
okay with adults taking cross-sex hormones?
If they choose to do it, sure.
Are you okay with adults getting their hand surgically removed because they feel they shouldn't have a hand anymore?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Thanks.
Can I ask my question I have for everyone now? Everyone, if you honestly, everyone except those of us who have transitioned, of course, all the boys, if you were in the right environment, like raised on Tumblr, you were in school right now, your teachers were telling you it's lit to be transgender. You didn't have any sort of concept of all of these ideas we're talking about right now, the dangers of hormone blockers, political conservatism. Do you think if you honestly look back on yourself, you might have transitioned?
No.
Try to take yourself out of the childhood that you had, Nick.
No, because okay, so I just went through my childhood and determined that I thought teachers were largely idiotic. I did not have a lot of respect for the overwhelming majority of them, and there were plenty of instances where teachers tried to convince me that the world was one way, and I resisted that tons. I mean, I leaned on different institutions, different people. Than teachers, but like if you put me in a public school system, I was an asshole. I still am. Like that didn't change. But so I it's not like I was thinking, oh yeah, this teacher has lots of wisdom. So for me, no, I don't think so.
Dick?
What if the people you leaned on were telling you to transition?
Then it might have been a little bit different there, but that would have mostly been my parents, probably.
Yeah. What if your parents are saying that?
Yeah, then who knows, right? Like that's a different question. But I don't, it's impossible to gauge the answer. But I think if we're being honest, we all have grades of where we put people. And that's, to me, that's the big risk of having this shit present in the school system, is because there are kids who do not have stronger, other, more trusted people than the state. And that's the fucking terrifying thing for me, is that it's, holy shit, the state is involved with this.
Okay, the next question has to do with the state. Lauren, I'm going to give it to you because you complained about not talking.
I'm probably going to hate it too. Let's hear it.
The Don't Say Gay bill, or anti-groomer bill, is a response to a seemingly irreconcilable political divide around gender and sexuality. If we take the law at face value, is it bigoted? Is it reasonable? How do you think we should talk to children about trans or gay issues?
Obviously, I think referring to it at all as the Don't Say Gay bill is just a misrepresentation of the bill in general. If you read it, it actually only says the words gay, transgender, like once in one sentence. The majority of the bill is just about, hey, if you're going to talk to people's kids about really crucial things in their life, like, I don't know, their mental health, suicide, whatever it might be, you have to tell the parents. You can't just get a bunch of information from this child and then, or do quizzes about their mental health, their sexuality, whatever it might be, and then cut off the parents from that conversation. I think that should not be a controversial bill in the least. And of course, they have a section in there that says if the child claims they're being abused by their parents or some harm might come to them, if a secret goes out to the parents, yes, that is one exception where you can keep secrets from the parents. But otherwise, the bill, the way it's been portrayed politically just blows my mind. I don't think you should have straight teachers going up to their kids and being like, hey, you know how much I effing love being straight, how much I love having sex with my male husband or my female wife. Love that. Like, I don't think that. And this
okay.
Wait,
explicitly Warren, are you really saying that you think that when liberals teach kids about sexual orientation, they say, you know how much I love fucking my boyfriend and sucking his fucking dick?
That's what they said on the Libs of TikTok account. I saw it. I saw it.
The point is, I don't think that you need to have teachers talking so much, especially with young kids, about their sexuality. I don't, especially, this is talking about like kindergartners in this bill,
we're talking
right?
about classroom instruction. I don't think the teacher comes in, and even when in high school, when they teach like sex ed, they're not like, so let's talk about what I like to masturbate to, kids. Like, they're not talking about their own sexuality. They're talking about like,
but
like,
this is pre-sex ed.
Yes,
like,
so it would be like
normally.
So homosexual means you like the same sex, heterosexual means you like the opposite sex, transgender means blah blah blah. It would be that kind of like classroom instruction, not like
I have no problem with that.
Intimate. Do you have a problem with that?
That's not what the Don't Say Gay bill is about.
It actually is. It literally is about classroom instruction,
because it is applying to kids before they generally get sex ed courses. It's like K to 8.
It applies to all of the children throughout the entire school. There is a section that specifically,
when it talks about sex, yeah.
Well, there's a section that references K through 3, but then it also says or any other age appropriate thing too. The biggest problem with this bill, and the reason why the bill is a fucking disaster, is because the bill is unique in that it creates a private. Did I say something funny? That's right.
Yes.
Okay. The bill creates a private cause of action that allows parents to sue schools. And because of the way that the fees work in Florida, the schools oftentimes might have to share a whole bunch of the burden of any of those court cases from the parents. So what you've essentially done is you've created the ability for any parent in any school district in all of Florida to just start bringing lawsuits to a school because they think that their child was taught something that they shouldn't have been taught. It's a disaster. You would never want to have this system. Like, you create a massive chilling effect on, like, should I not even teach a poet because he's gay? Should I not do the Shakespearean play because they mention gay? Like, now, like, when you're designing curriculums in schools, you're going to be designing the curriculum in mind with, like,
their turn to live in fear.
Yeah, good one. Okay. I have to design the curriculum that's least likely to even have a chance of, like, some parent deciding to do some fucking crazy civil suit against my classroom. Like, it's a horrible idea.
So is your problem with the bill just the application of it in the legal matter?
The problem in the bill is that it creates a private
of
cause of action for parents to sue school districts. It's
it's that aspect, not the actual language of the
Wait,
bill.
are you okay? Are you okay if, other than that, are you okay with the the social content of the bill? Of, like, don't talk to my kids about being trans. Don't talk to my kids about being
He's just trying to find something to disagree with me on.
First of all, no. Number one. Number two, the question is about the bill, okay, in its totality. All right. Now, if you're going to ask me, if you want to go deeper, you're not the moderator, so you didn't write these. Dick did. Thank you, Dick. Okay.
No, I did write the question.
No, Dick did. He told me. Sorry, you're just wrong. But
It's
no.
true.
So if you want to go like a step further, I mean, like, the problem is it's a bit vague in what it says, and different parents are going to have different interpretations of what it means to, like, appropriately teach something in class. Like I said, like, is it appropriate to mention that an author is gay? You know, for some teacher, they might think that that's a formative thing that, you know, influenced the writing. For some parent, they might say, I don't want my kid learning about who that poet fucked. My kid doesn't need to know if Oscar Wilde was doing weird shit or if Shakespeare was, like, we don't need to know about that. Just teach them the material, right? So, I mean, that's a hard...
Lots of Oscar Wilde and Shakespeare and K-3 education.
Well, if you read the actual bill, you can do it. It's only 3 pages long. You can go read it if you want.
Oh, believe me, I've read it.
Okay, yeah. Well, it says age appropriate up to, I believe, high school is what it extends through. So it's not, it does specify K-3 in one part, but then for the rest of it, I'm pretty sure it lets you bring these cause of action cases all the way up through high school.
Do you understand? You may not, don't take this the wrong way, because I'm a lawyer. Lawyers are retarded, and we have to pay a whole lot to figure out this stuff. But do you understand that when they say the age appropriate standard set by the commissioner, that is what's called a catch-all phrase, and that the board of Florida would have to develop those age appropriate standards that currently don't exist in regards to this topic. So there's not like, well, we think it's age appropriate at 6 to talk about that. So that is one of these catch-all things that allows the board to actually establish some of these standards. They can set what is age appropriate beyond K-3, but the bill itself is actually saying K-3 is set aside. None of this shit here. And then the commissioner or the board, I can't remember the exact wording, gets to set those standards under the Florida Education Bill. For example, Florida has standards regarding race discussions. When Black history is brought up in a Florida classroom, it is incumbent upon the curriculum to include positive stories about contributions that Black people have made throughout history within the subject. So if you're talking about science, you're going to talk about people like George Washington Carver, etc. That's one of those age-appropriate sort of standards that would be set, and that is then required by the bill to have these age-appropriate things if the Board of Education determines them to be there. But otherwise, it's just K-3. You can't talk about this stuff.
I don't know how anything you just said. I don't know what disagrees with anything I just said. Can you point out which section does, or?
I can help.
I don't know how you didn't catch that, but
well, explain it to me. I mean, you should be able to do it, right? So you're all you're telling me is you're kicking the can down the road to some board that is then going to try to iron out more what is going to be appropriate or what isn't going to be appropriate.
No, that could carve out age appropriate things and determine them, and that would remove them from any private cause of action in any sense. They could actually they could determine that there's an age appropriate second grade curriculum for sexual education and include that.
If removing all of the legal stuff, then what's the difference between this bill and just ordinarily like figuring out curriculum through your state at this point?
Well, this is a directive from the state legislature to control the curriculum in some way. It puts some walls around what the State Board of Education can do. That's all. And I just want to point out, like, creating a private cause of action got blown up like as if it's a big deal. But I tell you right now, it doesn't matter if you're in Florida or, oh, well, you can't say Ohio because they're working on the same bill. Let's say Florida or Montana or Nebraska or California. If you want to bring a private cause of action against your school for some sort of thing against a teacher, you can do that. And the school will also be involved because the teacher would be acting as an agent or employee of the school in the course of their duties. The school will be bearing the burden in the same way. So I know it creates a private cause of action, but it more clarifies a private cause of action because one already existed. You can sue the school for whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, you could, but my guess is going to be is that a judge is going to look at that lawsuit a lot differently if there's already a bill in place establishing for these types of cases, right? If I go before a judge and I say over and over again that I want to sue the school for this bullshit or that bullshit, like at some point, like I imagine that the case is either not going to be taken seriously, it'll be thrown out, but like it's going to be probably different, I would imagine, if the state has passed some piece of legislation, like specifically outlining where parents can take schools to court for these different types of things.
Yeah, it's when a teacher engages in classroom instruction that includes discussions about gender identity, sexuality between the ages of K through 3 grades. That's when it does that, and yes, it will give more validity to those specific lawsuits under those conditions.
I don't have the text in front of me, so I'm relying on your good faith interpretation. In the next sentence of that bill, doesn't it go on to say, and for all children up to or through high school or whatever's included, doesn't it say that in the next sentence, I thought? I don't know if anybody's a link to the bill.
Sort of, but what that is a phrase allowing a board to create standards in the future. Yes. It's not kicking the can down the road. It's opening the bill to accept either standards that would say this is acceptable education before 3rd grade, right? Like we'd say, oh, we actually like the gays. We can talk about them in 2nd grade now. Or it's creating unacceptable education up to 5th grade where they say, well, we liked them in 2nd grade, but we don't like the gays anymore in 5th grade. So there's no more talking there. It allows the board some flexibility in creating standards that go beyond the mere words of the bill. And this is really common. I mean, if you look up the Environmental Protection Agency, to pick an analogy here for an administrative sort of state agency, the EPA is created by the Clean Air and Water Act. And that is just merely given the directive to make clean air and make clean water. And then the administrative body and the executive branch that's in power gets the interpretive power to implement those things, to execute them, right? It's the same thing here. They're still giving the board some leeway on how they do this, but they're setting some pretty strict ground rules and some guidance for it. And so then any of the board's decisions would have to be within this bill. But that catch-all at the end gives them actually a whole lot of latitude if they change their minds later.
Sure. So I guess when we talk about things that exist to the privilege of the executive, these different things like the EPA or any of the organizations that exist under the executive literally does not have the ability to do like clean air and water without that executive directive, right? Whereas it seems like, don't we already have the ability to do curriculum in Florida? Like, do we not already have a state board of education that can decide like what curriculum they can enact? Like, why the additional legislation from the state in order to do that? What is the purpose?
They're narrowing the scope of the board's ability, which of course should be the prerogative of the representative body that represents the parents who control education in the state. And this is where this ultimately comes down. Look, I'm not saying that the Florida bill is the 100% correct solution or the most ultimately correct solution, but we do have this system where the schools, the education system in this country, borrows the right to educate children from parents. They borrow that right, they borrow that authority, and then they implement it through state law. That's a state-by-state basis. As long as we can keep the fucking feds out of it, that would be great. But they do this, and that means that once you're an agent of the state, once you're a teacher, no, you don't get academic freedom. You get to shut the fuck up and teach what the parents are giving, because they're giving their right to the state. The parents have the right of education. We have all sorts of litigation about this. We have all sorts of precedent that says parents have the fundamental right to educate their children in the way that they want. So when they lend that power to the state, they get to sculpt it however the shit they want. That's why the Florida bill is wonderful, even if you disagree with the language or the ages, and I might disagree with some of the age ranges in there, but it doesn't matter because the people of Florida get to carve this out and they get to implement it. And all the teachers who want to bitch about it, fucking leave, start a private school, homeschool kids, start a homeschool pod, whatever you want. You can teach all of your ideology there and people can voluntarily do it. But when kids are given to the state, they have to use the authority that the parents give them. And if the parents don't give them the authority, fuck off. You don't have it.
Is it a good idea that we're establishing the precedent that like curriculum comes from like our state laws, that we're essentially going to start taking votes on like how, you know, how many black people should be taught in school or how many whatever, that this is something that where
do you think curriculum comes from?
My idea is that, or my understanding is that curriculum is designed by like whatever state education board does their stuff, but you don't typically have input from like the state legislature on like the scope of what. Is that not the case? Yeah, go ahead.
The state legislature creates those education boards and lays out a framework for how they will determine curriculum. Yes, that's how it's been done basically forever.
Sure, but like, isn't it not generally the case that you're passing like state legislation to like narrow the scope of like what the education board can design for curriculum, or is that normally the case?
I mean, I don't know that it's been done in this particular way, but sure, yeah. I mean, because the state says, for example, and this is probably more akin to what it used to be, we want you to teach this subject, and this subject to these kids. And maybe actually early on it was like, and don't talk about black people. But we've kind of changed that. The 14th Amendment changed a lot of how this works too. But this is how it's done. The state boards of education are created by legislation from the state legislature, which is representing the people who are giving that power. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I just...
So true, Nick. Anyways, shut up, Steven. I've got to go here.
Bye, loser. Leave. Okay, when we talk
So true, Nick. Honestly, you're doing great here. Just wanted to let you guys know. Had fun. Had a good time.
Thanks for coming, Lauren.
It feels like there is
Whoa.
Can you leave? Don't you have video games to play?
Yeah, just let me interrupt you once more. All right. Bye, guys.
It feels like there's like the appropriate forum for parents to have conversations about education is one, relatively local, right? Like we have like our different city councils or our city school boards and educators that we elect, and that these conversations literally happen within schools. And that seems to be like the most appropriate setting for conversations relating to curriculum or curriculum direction, like within the scope of we should probably all learn like math, science, history, like for those conversations to happen. I guess getting like a state directive from the top down that is so, I guess, specific around this individual topic just seems like it, especially from a conservative party that seems to be less in favor of centralized educational power. It just seems to be like a weird way to go about these types of conversations, or rather it should be left to more like the more local municipality, whether it's in your individual school or whether it's your like city or your district that's having a conversation about how education and curriculum should be designed.
Again, it goes to the fundamental way in which we borrow power from the populace and give it to a state institution. Remember that, I mean, yes, there are school boards that are localized, and sure, there can be flexibility amongst local school boards with parents voting on curriculum and stuff like that.
Well, there can't be now, right?
No, there can be. Just, yeah, what's up?
I want to know what we think about this, assuming the bill is in whatever spirit it's supposed to be in, right? Like, this is drifting into like a debate about big government, small government, who should be making these decisions. But I wrote the question because I want to know what decisions you guys think they should be making, not how they should be making them.
Well, like how they're making them is kind of important, right? It's because that's kind of the process by which, when we talk about laws, right?
But are you okay with a school or a state deciding that?
I think that if you go to your school meetings and all of the parents there are like, hey, when we're doing curriculum here, like for our school, we don't want this particular thing taught at this school or whatever. I think that, I mean, they're your kids and it's your fucking government. You're the one that pays the taxes with your property at the school. I think that the parents ought to have the ability to say that. It feels a little bit strange to me to create such narrow directives from a state legislative body that has to filter down all the way down through.
But what if they say that you can't learn about black people?
I mean, like we can get into conversation about like protected classes, or if they say like you shouldn't learn math. Like, I mean, I'm in favor of like federal like standards that we should probably all know some level of math, reading, science, or whatever.
Okay.
Other people should. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going back and forth. Nick, I appreciate the responses. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Calvin
real
has entered
quickly,
the chat.
on the black subject, we have the 14th Amendment, which would prevent that in general. But yeah, again, it comes down to where you derive authority to do this. The school boards, the county boards, they don't have the authority to take from the parents. It has to come from the state. So the state makes the guidelines. And again, ultimately, our system may be flawed, but it's the system that we have was designed so that the states were the petri dishes, not the counties. And if you don't like it, you will always have the right to educate your children so long as some conservatives get to have any sort of say and have a couple good lawyers laying around. But you can always pull your children out and homeschool them. You can always take your children to a private school. And in my wonderful world, you would actually have school choice, and the state would fund your ability to do that in the way that they do with public schools. And we could eliminate this problem entirely.
Build your own school, right, Nick?
Exactly, with the government money.
Calvin, you're libertarians. You can never pin them down. Calvin, you've joined the conversation. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Little loud.
All right, so yeah, the only person.
Wait, you're slightly too loud. Is that?
He said slightly, but he really means you're absolutely fucking too loud. Way too
I turned it down. Is it better?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, cool. Yeah, so hi everyone. I think the only person I've talked to like face to face here was Buck. What's up, Buck?
Hey, kiddo. How's
What's
it
going
going?
on? Not much. But yeah, sorry, I just saw your invite to join. I started watching. I was like pretty busy with school today, but I wanted to join in. Like, you know, I saw Buck was really the only. I mean, I haven't talked to most of you, but Buck was the only other trans person here, and I felt like you're having a trans soul. You're having a panel of canceled trans people. I'm the guy to talk to. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah.
How did you get transled, Calvin?
Oh God. You want a list?
Obama.
Like, honestly, most of it was like just for cringy, like anti-SJW videos I made when I was like 17, 18, where I said people couldn't identify, it didn't make sense for people to identify as autism gender. And like, there's some legitimate stuff. I stopped making videos kind of a minute ago, but I do like from time to time hop in, like on my channel and do like lives and stuff. I don't know. Namely, oh God, no, I don't know if I can name drop certain people. There's this trans creator who's a trans woman. She just says crazy things, never had one good take. She says crazy things all the time. Her name is Demon Mama. We know her. We love her.
Absolutely fucking base. I don't know who the fuck you are, but
I'm scared to
you're
name drop
base.
her.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if she will. I don't know if she'll be summoned by just her name, but
That's
she just said
culture
some
for you.
crazy things about like self-diagnosis, and I like. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, maybe people haven't kept up with me since I stopped making YouTube videos, but I'm in college and I'm like pretty much I'm dual enrolled in undergrad and my master's right now. I'm getting my degree in applied counseling. So I, with mental health, like self-diagnosis, have like a lot of opinions on that. And I did not like her opinions. So.
Okay. MrGirl, I'm going to throw this one to you. This is the next question. Feel free to jump in, Calvin. The specter of suicide looms over discussions about trans people's access to hormones and surgeries, including teenagers. MrGirl, you compared this aspect of trans activism to a romantic partner threatening suicide in an abusive relationship. Is this specter of suicide a manipulation tactic, or is it important to raise awareness of suicidality in trans populations?
It's a manipulation tactic.
I think so.
Yes, I think that it's, well, one thing is talking about suicidality tends to increase suicidality, which is, so when you're raising awareness about it, you're also making it worse, which makes it kind of tricky to talk about. And like even in this panel, I want to be sort of like, hopefully careful with how we address it. But I do, yeah, I think that a lot of like thought trees end at, well, if you don't do this, you know, these people or these kids will kill themselves. And and then that turns into like straw man arguments where you're like, if you're arguing against this, or if you're questioning it, even if you're not willing to accept this new truth or new reality, you are killing people, or you're complicit in murdering them. And Yeah, I do think it's manipulative, and if what you're saying is true, like it basically boils the whole like ideology and advocacy down to like these people will be really, 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 really upset if you don't do what they want. And like for us to sign on wholesale on changing our definitions of what women and what men are and what is appropriate for kids to be taught or medications to take and surgeries, I think that it should stand up on its own without the fear of death if you don't go along with it.
I think your point about it being used as a straw man is true. Like that is a true thing that trans people do. They will use that but I do think that it's important to not understate like the fact that there is a really high suicide attempt rate for trans people, and so you kind of have to walk this line between like, okay, let's address that this is a thing and that there is like a high percentage of trans people who are trying to kill themselves, and that's why we need to give them access to transition and to like, you know, discuss trans people and like, you know, understand that it's like a real thing. But at the same time, I do think that like there are trans people who will abuse that.
There's 100% trans people who do that. I have read on boards where kids tell other kids, if you just tell your parents you're going to kill yourself, that I've actually read it. So this is what you need to tell your parents so you can start to wear a binder or you can start to. So they are actually speaking to them, you know, within the community about how to do that. There's definitely a high rate of suicidal tendencies, but I do not think that there is a high rate of actual suicide. So I think that it's kind of like messes with people's understanding of what that means. They might, you know, it comes off as we're all killing ourselves. That's not true. We definitely have a high rate of suicidal ideation, most definitely. But I also think it's manipulative, and it can become manipulative. If you don't give me my hormones, I'm going to kill myself, or you don't let me take, you know, get my binder, I'm going to kill myself. That's an actual manipulation towards parents, and they're being taught that.
I also just don't. I think I don't agree with part of that, Calvin, where you're saying, like anorexia, as far as I know, is the disorder with the highest death rate out of all psychological disorders. And that doesn't mean we should give anorexics what they want.
But anorexia and dysphoria are different in the sense that anorexia, like you can't really make a parallel between those two things.
I think they're the same.
But they're not.
I'm not even making a parallel. I think they're literally the same.
Okay, so can you like explain how you think they're the same? Because like I think if they were the same thing, the literature and the DSM would have those two things be the same thing. They're not.
They haven't caught up to
I
MrGirl
disagree with
yet.
that statement.
They're behind.
No, you're right, Destiny.
By about 100 years. They're the same in the sense that you look in the mirror, you can't stand what you see, and you want to
keep hating your life. Then working class and
really badly.
People conflate. People mix up gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia a lot. Body dysmorphia.
I think they're the same,
but they're not, because body dysmorphia is when you look in the mirror and you're delusional. You're seeing something that's not there. Like if I were to look in the mirror and think I looked morbidly obese, right, like 300 pounds, right, and I genuinely see that in the mirror, that's body dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria is like it's strange because it's the complete opposite. It's like pre-transition. You look in the mirror and you see what's actually there. You're not delusional. You're not seeing something that's not actually there, but it's not right. It's like you're looking in the.
I understand that some of the mechanisms by how they're experienced are different, but ultimately I think someone's looking in the mirror, they're really unhappy with what they see, and they want to do something to make themselves happy with what they see. And so when we have an anorexic 15-year-old, we say, yeah, we know you want to do this and you're going to be really, really unhappy if you don't, but like you can't. Like you have to find other ways to accept your body or cope with this or whatever. But
you can treat anorexia. You can overcome anorexia. With gender dysphoria, the research literature shows like gender transition is the most effective way of overcoming gender dysphoria.
Yeah, if there was a way to surgically make somebody look like they're 80 pounds without harming them or killing them, that would probably help with anorexia too. But I guess I don't think
the
issue
is Calvin is
desirable.
saying is that wouldn't help because even girls, I've known anorexic people, two of them, even girls that are anorexic, there is no surgery that will help them because they always feel like they're overweight. Like they'll be like 80 pounds, like 5'7", looking in the mirror, like, oh God, like I'm so fat.
To me, that
where there is no like eating dysphoria, there is no eating dysphoria like euphoria, where it's like, oh my God, my body looks so good. Whereas for trans people, ideally, if they've gotten like a good enough surgery and they pass, they do look in the mirror like, oh my God, I actually feel like I look like what I feel like.
I guess I just see the whole the trans advocacy movement as a whole as this compulsive, never satisfied, always digging, always wanting more.
But that's not all trans
definitionally
people.
Yeah,
no, it's not all trans people. It's not all anorexic people too. Like there are people who really do just want to lose weight and be really skinny, not to the point where they're
But
like,
we know
they're not
the
anorexic,
ideology.
right?
There's a
True,
the
yeah, I guess-
ideology of gender dysphoria is we don't really fully know what the ideology of it is. Whereas with anorexia, there's a lot more like understanding of what the ideology of that is, and there's like documented treatment of it, like without and like in therapy. Like you go to therapy, you can't like conversion therapy, talk therapy doesn't work for trans people. Whereas over time, I mean, and
I just don't believe.
I don't
that.
think it works for anorexic people either. You
It
just
doesn't
gotta
work for
pick
fucking
up-
anybody.
Okay, can
All
you
talk
listen to me for a
therapy
sec?
does is make you like
anorexia is
learn
one of the
how-
hardest. I will say, I'll concede this. Anorexia is one of the, like statistically, one of the most difficult disorders. It's like the most pervasive. Like it's hard to treat, but it can be treated. People can
Look,
overcome.
my point is that if you take a person who has a disorder, normally they don't decide their own course of treatment. Usually they're like, everyone with a disorder wants something that is like weird and different from what most people want. They usually want to do something that looks insane to the rest of us. And most of those disorders, we respond by saying, hey, we love you, but you can't do that. Just
But
stop.
what
You
about
can't do
someone-
that, especially if you're a kid? But with trans people, when someone has dysphoria, we say, what do you want? Like, what do you want on the like pharmacy shopping list? We'll give you anything you want. We'll do anything we can do to make you feel comfortable in your body. Whereas like with every other teenager, we just say like, yeah, you have to be uncomfortable.
But they don't have to be
We're all
uncomfortable. We have
uncomfortable.
surgeries.
Yeah, I
They don't
transitioned
have to
out-
be. Like-
For context, I transitioned at 15. Like I socially
Yeah.
transitioned at 15. I started T at 16. I got top surgery at 17. There has not been 1 second of my I'm 21 now. There's not been 1 second of my life where I ever regretted it, never thought back to anything.
Oh, well,
I
if you're already 21, then you fucking know everything, don't you? Listen,
No,
I don't
no,
want to
no,
get, I don't want to argue. I don't
and
want to
I-
argue with you about your own medical decisions
No,
in your life.
no, you're right.
You do.
But I try to be accountable and introspect a lot. This is something I introspect about a lot and keep myself accountable. And obviously I'm here, I'm not trying to argue.
Okay.
I'm
Argue with him. Calvin, he's literally
I
saying you
interest-
shouldn't
I-
exist. That's what he's saying. If Mr. Girl had it his way, you wouldn't be allowed because Mr. Girl doesn't believe in any sort of medical transitioning before the age of 18. He doesn't believe in any puberty block and anything like that.
That's true.
I guess
I don't believe in it either.
Why do you believe that if it works? But why, if there's people like me who it works for, and I'm not the only person? Like why? And there's why?
It worked for me. I transitioned 30 years ago. It
And-
worked for me.
Yeah, I
So-
don't believe anything works for anybody.
Well, I mean, okay, so
I'm not
word-
sitting here saying like, oh, I've got like my life
The
is
word
great.
work.
You just got
Your life's
Mr.
great.
Girled. Oh, shit.
Everything, life sucks. Nick was right on that, and it's all a mess, and nothing works. You're gonna regret it. And if you didn't transition, you'd regret that too.
On my
That's
deathbed,
right.
You're gonna regret your whole
on
fucking
my
life.
deathbed, on my deathbed, I will remember. I swear to you, Mr. Girl, I will. If I'm 80 years
Good.
old, I will say, Mr. Girl, I didn't regret it. That will be my
Good.
final word.
I want my smug face to be the last thing that goes through your mind before
My
you
mind
blink out of
before
existence
I'm
forever.
yeah.
So life sucks. Is that the?
Life-
But
I'm
life
saying
doesn't
that-
have to suck. You're being nihilistic. Life doesn't have to
No,
suck.
no, I don't think it's nihilistic to just say like yeah, we all wish our bodies were different, and I don't know.
Why not let
that
people? Here's my thing: is like if it
do-
works.
Do you think it would be weird if every high school boy started taking steroids to be more muscular so they could look more like Captain America?
That would be weird.
Like that would be weird, right?
I
And
mean, it's not necessary.
Why not?
because what if they
Because
really
they're not,
want
like,
to?
they
What if they're gonna kill themselves if they don't kill?
I mean, to be
And they
honest,
literally do.
And they literally do.
to be honest with you, the thing is that if there's a high school boy who's going to kill himself if he doesn't take steroids, there's an underlying issue with probably when it comes to like body dysmorphia again, because men struggle with body dysmorphia too.
Right. But
And-
you want to
but
define
again, within the
gender dysphoria
psychological
as
literature, body dysphoria can.
yeah, I will burn that literature. You want
I
to
will
take
pull it up
you
for
want to
you.
take I don't fucking care. You want to take gender dysphoria and define it as a bedrock psychological issue that there is nothing underneath. there's nothing to treat or even to look at. We can't like lift it up and peek.
Oh, I think we should.
Why
no, there's definitely something under that.
Okay.
100%.
But when it comes to it, but when I describe a high school boy wanting to look like Captain America, then all of a sudden your mind fills with explanations of why that might be and how looking like Captain America, while very satisfying, even up until maybe even all the way to his deathbed, might not actually be the ideal solution. And that maybe the ideal solution is a societal shift, shifting in the family, shifting within himself, of accepting where he's at. So it's so like, yes, some people are going to want it so badly that they get the fake boobs, they do the testosterone, they whatever, they buy that expensive sports car that they want during their midlife crisis or whatever. Some people take the leap, but I think what maybe we can all agree is that progressives are moving that gap to help you leap over it and making it smaller and easier and younger.
Well, I think that first of all, transitioning is a decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. All these fucking people but listen to me though. This is where me and you differ, Buck, though, because the thing is
we do.
But but we both can see the importance in it, and so like let me just like get.
You have to realize we come from different generations. I have a different way of thinking. I have a different way of being. I have a different idea of why transition and what transition is about. I have a whole different idea of it than the younger generation, and that's why Kelvin and I are totally buddies. But we just have different. We have disagreements, which is awesome. And I love that we can have this conversation as trans people. This is what people need to see. We have totally different ideas, but we still can be friends around it and understand
My opinion is that, like, you guys are saying, like, okay, you're coming to the conclusion, okay, well, there's all these, like, issues with medical transition and stuff. So we should just, like, we should bar it. Like, we should just not have kids transition. We should just, but I think that the solution is more like, let's go back to kind of how it was with, like, let's focus on the mental health aspect, because there are different, there are different groups of trans people. There are trans people who will benefit from medical transition, and there is no way to convert them. I don't care what you say, Mr. Girl. There are trans people where
I'm not saying you. No. I'm saying convert them to being miserable. Like
no.
Me.
You're saying
convert them to accepting that they're not going to have the body they want. They're not going to have the life they want. Right. They're going to look in the mirror every day and feel some distant sadness.
But
or maybe
why should I have to live like that? You know
because
what I mean?
Because that's fucking life.
Type 1 diabetes is life. Like, I don't know what
I was able to live
that.
like this, and I'm so much happier.
There are autoimmune diseases that are life. Like, if we can alleviate something medically, why would we not? We would never.
I guess I don't believe that it is medicated.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't believe it is actually alleviated.
So yes, that's the thing. So you need to be more clear, because you make it sound like you're agreeing when in reality you just don't think that trans people are like a real thing. You think that it's just like a mindfuck thing that they can get over or just accept and deal with. But it's not like a unique thing to trans people. It's just like part of the human condition of life being shitty. Yeah, but that's not specific
to trans people. I don't believe that any of these things are like a real, like an autoimmune disease. That's a real thing, for sure. And the trans advocacy is to try to make us think of a psychological state or disorder, depending on who you ask, into a similar thing. So I think. I do. That's why I'm listing other like psychiatric or psychological conditions, because I see it as similar to that, not similar to diabetes.
But see, the problem with this is that the trans issue, and I think this is kind of what you're getting at, Mr. Girl. The trans issue is a sacred cow. It is unassailable. It is set aside. It is somehow different. And then when you mention that, I'm not really sure how it's different. The onus was instantly put on you to prove that it wasn't different, rather than any evidence that it is. And I mean, we treat it differently, sure, but I haven't ever seen any reasoning as to why it's treated differently, other than, well, it's in the DSM, so a bunch of people got together and decided it was different. But I mean, I fall in line with what you're saying, that this is an issue that is akin to these other issues, and these other issues aren't treatable with, or we don't deem it socially acceptable to treat these other issues with surgery or hormones or anything else. There's a super chat from Cynthia, my favorite liberal, who said that her 14-year-old is in volleyball and wants to take hormones to get taller. Why aren't we allowing this stuff? Why don't we have these things for kids? And I think it's because we are concerned with the decisions that we're allowing children to make when we don't allow them to make other decisions. I mean, if you said, look, there are some kids who are really, really poor, and the best thing to do would be to give them a credit card so they could buy food. I think that we go, wait, but we don't give kids credit cards. It's like, well, why not? Well, they're not capable of making appropriate financial decisions. I mean, I would rather deal with debt than long-term medical issues. So to me, this is where I'm seeing the problem. This is a sacred cow issue, and that's kind of the whole theme of the night, right? Transel culture is this is the sacred cow.
I think that there are some... Okay. I think that there are some issues where there are some things where we accept that, like, this is like a baseline thing that we ought to be able to live with. Like, we have some base expectation of what people should have to deal with, and like the I guess the privileges or the existence that ought to be afforded to some people. If some kid came up to you and he was like, listen, my life is miserable, I really need like the newest, hottest Nikes or Yeezys or whatever, we would look at that kid and we would go, you know what, like, I don't think in society that you should be guaranteed the right to have your favorite pair of Yeezys, or to the whatever the lady's daughter's name. Like, you don't need to be guaranteed the right to be a certain height to play volleyball. Like, I think that you can exist in society and be just fine without being guaranteed. But if a kid was like, hey, like, I go to school and I get lunch there, when I go home, like, I can't eat because my parents can't afford food is probably something that we should provide people. Like, so at some level, there's going to be some subjectivity to what we decide you have to live with. But when it comes to something like gender dysphoria, if we do have the ability...
Do I smell communism? I do.
Absolutely nothing I said had anything to do with communism.
Like what?
You have a JD, I'm sure you must have taken at least one poli-sci class or something, okay? So...
Oh, yeah. Well, no, we should just give people food all the time, right? Like, that makes sense.
We do that in
and
the United States.
Water,
we
right?
do that in the United States. And every
Water.
single developed country in the
Keep it on
world,
track.
this is what is done. Yes, we do not let people starve on the street traditionally. I'm sorry if that upsets you, but yeah, we've made that decision in society that people probably should be starving to death.
That happens in LA still.
When it comes to, in LA they choose it, okay? Those people are
It's
fucking
amazing.
crazy, okay? There's a reason I left that godforsaken city. But when it comes to things like gender dysphoria, if there is a way to alleviate it medically, we do have processes for it. It just seems a little bit unnecessarily cruel to be like, no, you're gonna have to just go ahead and live with this. Like, I think having the right to live as the gender that you see yourself as, and to not have that incongruence that it doesn't seem like people choose. It's not just some shit that you're just like, man, fuck, I want to be fucking trans today because suicide sounds awesome. It seems like you probably should have the right to make these decisions and medically transition should you have the ability to do so, when we do have the technology to do so.
When you turn 18.
But then it's too late. There's no point in...
It's not too late. That's not too late.
Absolutely.
Lots of people transition
is-
after 18.
I transitioned in my late 20s.
Stop. Hold on. You're driving me crazy. For trans women that have male puberties, you're looking at potentially over $100,000 more in cost, which to a lot of people, you brought up earlier that people use that insult, passing privilege. A lot of that is because people feel like passing is gate kept behind money, right? FFS is incredibly expensive. Yeah, absolutely.
That's not why.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, is because it is like, right, go ahead.
So first off, I don't necessarily think that's true. But that being said, a lot of people transition later in age and are perfectly okay with it and have a great, awesome life like me. So I don't necessarily think you have to transition at an early age in order to be able to just live your life beautifully. Yeah, it's a struggle. Yeah, a lot of people struggle, but also is struggle a bad thing? I don't necessarily think so.
But it depends.
That being said, you have to remember we are not monolithic.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
The way we come to it, some people don't realize they're trans until a later age.
Sure, and if they don't, that's great. But like, Buck, if I saw you, I would just instantly assume you're a man. I would, no question about it. But there are a lot of trans women that don't have that same
But you
privilege.
keep going back to trans women.
Well, because
men.
because trans men typically, like, you can get away with looking a bit more effeminate in society, and people aren't going to call you a woman. Nobody, like, it's just not typically a thing. Whereas even Lauren here earlier was saying, like, sometimes people accuse her of being a man. I think that when it comes to puberty, I think that, like, the female puberty is generally a bit easier to transition from female to male if you've gone through it. But if you've gone through,
It's not true.
When it comes to
it's easier to add
when it
to
comes
your
to
body than
externally
subtract.
passing, I think that trans men can have a much easier time passing than trans women generally. Maybe not every time, right? And for evidence of that, facial masculinization surgery is like I think like $5,000, and the female version is like $50,000, right? It's like 10 times more because there's so much more. So I think that in general, this is why I keep going back to trans women. I'm not saying fuck trans men, we exclude trans men, but it's easier if you go through puberty as a woman. It's easier post puberty to transition to to looking like a man versus.
It's just a different thing we have to deal with than what trans women have. Now I understand your analogy there of having to have big shoulders and all of those things, but I still know tons of trans women who have dealt with it and have been perfectly okay with it and said that they are okay that they didn't have puberty blockers. So my experience tends to be different.
But like
my
almost every
trans
person would say, if given the chance, they would have transitioned younger if they could have. Almost everyone.
That's not necessarily true, because I think some people didn't actually understand what was going on with them at that age and then realized at a later age. But that being said, again, we're all different, and that's why we can't it's so hard to have this conversation, because we're always put in this little like sort of zone that we're all exactly the same. And some people don't even want to transition to look like how I look anymore. They just want to be trans and not necessarily a pass as a man or a woman.
I think we all agree those people suck, right? Everybody on this panel. Everybody on this panel fucking hates those people, okay?
I can't, Destiny, I can't say that kind of stuff anymore.
Maybe you don't, but fuck those people.
Trouble. I can. No, it's
I just want to say for the
record, it's a different space. We really need to recognize that.
Like, I don't understand why the conclusion has to be, though, like, let's stop people under 18, all people under 18 from transitioning, and not, okay, well, let's get way more like concise with like the mental health procedures and the therapy and like ways that we can be affirmative and say, okay, let's have therapists that are respectful of people's identities and don't like, you know, try to do conversion therapy, but also try to explore like what else could be going on before. Like when I started T at 16, I went to therapy for a year. I lived as male for a year beforehand, and I went to therapy for 6 months. And if I urge every trans person I ever meet
hating
to
your
just
life then, working class
socially
Andy.
transition for a year and go to therapy for at least 6 months and go to a therapist who's not just gonna like affirm and not think about other things. But my therapist always called me Calvin, but she talked with me about everything in my life to make sure not only that like I wouldn't regret it later, but to make me feel more confident in the decision, and my parents to feel more confident. Like my parents talked to her. We had the whole family come in. Like it was a whole thing. And that's not required, but it should be. So why don't we focus, because you would have way less people passing through the system and detransitioning and all these problems if we focus on the mental health care instead of just banning all kids from transitioning.
That's right, okay, but that's the problem. We're pushing people through too fast. You can get hormones in 5 minutes on the internet now. Like, how is that even possible? How are we not implementing that?
I have a question from chat. How does a therapist figure out if a complete transition is appropriate for an individual?
Okay, so there's diagnostic criteria for gender dysphoria. So obviously you touch on that criteria as in the DSM, and also oftentimes.
Wait a second. I think the question is more how should.
How should I think?
Figure out not how does. How should.
I think that you should. I think that there should be like just discussions about like what your goals are. Why do you want to transition? How are you feeling? Like if you were because here's the thing for me, my transition was never about. It was about how other people view me, but it's also not. Like, if I truly believe that if I was on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean, I would have still felt uncomfortable. So still wanted to transition. It's not, when I'm thinking about getting bottom surgery and stuff, right? It's not for other people. It's not for sexual purposes. Of course, that's nice. But for me with bottom surgery, it's like more about like, I don't have to shower in the dark anymore. That's an awful fucking thing to shower in the dark because, and it's not, you know, I don't have like body image issues in the way body dysphoria is. It's literally, it's not a delusional type of thing the way body dysphoria is. It's just that you see something that's not there and it should be, and it's not. And like the way that you would like, and again, it's like so complex how you would do an evaluation. And again, it takes months and months and months of talking to a client. But I think that like the answer is to focus on, okay, let's have conversations about what are the questions we should ask? What are the best, most effective ways? And not just like, in my opinion and your opinion, but like, let's do some research, some psychological research and look to the literature on effectiveness and stuff, because it is documented. And I feel like that is the best way, like empirical evidence. That is the best way.
Also, it's individual. You have to understand, again, it's individual. So this doctor's dealing with this patient, and it's in an individual space. And I do think that we can't, again, say, well, how can a doctor diagnose a person with gender? No, you have to understand each individual is different, and that doctor is going to come to different ideas and different understanding of that person and make that choice. But I think ultimately it comes up to the person to make that final decision. Even
like everyone is different, but Buck, I'm gonna be honest. Like I feel like the underlying mechanism of my dysphoria and your dysphoria, there's probably a similar, like whatever the root of it is, we still don't know. Me and you are the same transition. We don't regret it, and here we are now. We would never go back. No. For trans people like me and you, there has to be some sort of underlying mechanism.
Yeah, I agree.
And there would be a way to diagnose that. There should be a way, and there kind of is. It's not perfect.
There is.
But you know what I mean? Like I have a gender dysphoria diagnosis. There's ways to like, you know, to do that. There is like some sort of like everyone's different in their own way, but in other ways, there is this disorder that we know exists and we see it in different people.
Yeah.
I guess like the question comes down to like if and this is weird because MrGirl and Nick kind of have, it's hard to tell if you guys think that trans people are like a real phenomenon at all. If you do think,
not really.
Okay,
I don't.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
No, wait. I just want to say because we're having these conversations right now. Like we're having an argument with MrGirl. Like, how do we figure out if they're trans or they're trans? But he doesn't even believe that trans is like truly a concept. So that discussion is like worthless, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do.
What? I believe that trans. What do you mean?
But like, how could you say that? Like, how could you say that when like me and Buck are sitting right in front of you, telling you that's not the case, and like all of the evidence and empirical, psychological, it disagrees with you. Like you can.
Wait, do you believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior?
I don't. But like religion is
okay. But wait, Nick, do you?
Like you can.
Yeah.
Okay, but Nick's right here, guys. He's right here in front of you.
Yeah, but Jesus isn't here. That's the difference.
Jesus isn't. That's when it comes to Jesus,
you have a belief system. You have a belief system
about. There's as much proof that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior as much as there is proof that He's not. With trans people,
you can't. You're not going to change my opinion.
No proof that He's not.
You're not gonna change my like.
That's a negative. That's weird.
By yelling at me right now. Listen,
if there was ever a place where Jesus wasn't, it would be not in this conversation.
my point.
Anywhere two or more are gathered, even trans. He said it.
So to me, transness is kind of, or gender ideology is kind of like a religion. It's a way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
It's not. Well, I know that's fine. I understand that you believe it is the literal truth. And I'm using Nick as an example. I'm using Nick as an example. Wait, hang on. I'm using Nick as an example of somebody who believes in a different truth from you. You can see him sitting there. You can see that he doesn't believe the world is the way you think it is, and you think the world is the way he doesn't think it is, and yet we're all still in the same room talking to each other.
That's right.
Okay, so let me make my point real quick. Let me just say what I'm saying. With Jesus, it's not that Jesus isn't my Lord and Savior, right? I'm just gonna go with religion and so wait, Nick. So I'm assuming you're religious. Sorry.
Yeah. Sure.
You're
sure.
I'm the best Christian there ever was.
Let's take someone who I would say that I'm just like kind of neutral on religion. I can't disprove it and I can't prove it equal amounts. Like there's no proof that God is real. There is no way for me to say that it is for certain. Like, you know what I mean?
So
I'm
you're equally Muslim, Jewish.
Well,
Christian.
I mean, I can't. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to study it. There's no empirical way to.
Okay, so yeah, so if somebody walks up to you in the street and they say, "Are you Muslim?" You're like, "I don't know."
I would probably just say like
I can't answer that because I don't have proof.
I would say no. No, because I'm not like I'm not any religion. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I'm also not religious, so I know just what you mean. But so that's how I feel when people are like, "So do you believe that you have like a gender inside you that like could maybe not match up with your body?"
I mean, you can have your opinion and what I mean, but like all of I was supposed to get actual research and empirical evidence that goes against that. Like, you know what I mean? So like everybody can have
empirical means here.
I'm sorry.
But honestly, it doesn't even matter, to be honest. I don't really care if that's how you feel about it. And I actually respect that you feel that way, and it's totally okay. It's not going to make or break me. And that's what I think people need to stop being so sensitive about. I don't, though, because this is the problem. No, you're not sensitive. You're not sensitive. I'm just saying, in general, the trans community gets so weird when people don't accept us. It's like, so what? Guess what?
So what? Because the rejection means like outlawing drugs and care and stuff for trans people.
Trans people require support. Buck, if people didn't support you, Buck, you wouldn't have ever been able to transition.
I transitioned when there was nobody supporting me, my friend.
You had to. You had to have.
But I had to. So
wait, I think Steven's making a good point where he's saying that it's not. There's two different issues. There's one, do you believe in it enough to support me with what I want or need for myself or my advocacy, or at least to leave me alone? And then secondly, do you believe in it enough to pledge that you believe in it? And I feel like that this one is the one I'm more concerned about, where I feel like I'm being asked to pledge that I agree with this narrative, and if I don't pledge it, and even if I'm quiet about it, if I don't put pronouns in my bio or whatever, increasingly I'm in danger.
And that's what I get upset about. I'm very upset about that because I don't think that it should be that way. I think you should have every right to think how you want to think, and that just should not affect me in any way, shape, or form. So I do have a problem with that, and I don't think you need to accept it and be okay with it if you're not. And it shouldn't bother us as trans people. We should be like, okay, cool. You don't get it. We're going to take care of ourselves, and we're going to move forward here.
But I think there has to be varying levels of what acceptance means. Right?
Well, yeah, I'm speaking specifically about him, right? So, of course, in the whole world, we have to educate the world to say we are here. Now, you don't have to necessarily agree with it, but what you do need to do is open up a little space for us, and that's what we need to understand. That's called coexisting. But that I do not, in any way, shape, or form, feel like I have to change your mind in order for me to live this life. I feel like I respect that you don't agree with my choice, but I think we can sit here and have a conversation and maybe even have a beer, and it doesn't really even matter. That's where I stand.
I don't drink, Buck, but I would.
Neither do I.
I would have some peanuts with you.
I feel like it might be important to delineate something here because I think I'm getting put into this fun box, which is great and all, but my ultimate position is I don't care what you do as an adult to yourself. Like I could give a shit less if transgenderism is real or not real. It's irrelevant. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care what, like, you pick whatever. Maybe you're an ice cream fetishist and you like to bathe in some wonderful vanilla. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the moment we start putting kids in an institution in which they cannot escape, and then we have someone agendizing something. I don't care what it is. And for anyone, let me head off the argument that, well, parents can indoctrinate children too. Yes, a parent indoctrinating a child to anything will always be 100% less offensive than the state indoctrinating the kid to the same thing that the parent would. And so as long as that's there, that's where I have problems. Like as far as whether or not like trans is a real thing, I think we're getting off into the weeds on like empirical evidence and stuff like that, when I think largely it's completely irrelevant if we just take the approach of, you know, once you are outside of the protection of the state, then as like a, you know, sub 18-year-old person, which is what we've decided, then you do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. But as long as we're going to have the state here, then people get to have input on the rules on what the state is going to do to protect its future citizenry. And I'm really concerned about a state that has any sort of program that could potentially be causing significant harm to its future citizenry, especially when we go outside the protections of the parental unit by passing quote unquote affirming legislation that is less about affirming and more about concealing. Like,
but I think whether it's a real thing comes into play when you're talking about what you're teaching in school. So like evolution, we teach in school. And so for that to work,
school. No, I'm just kidding.
For that to work, we have to have religious people kind of concede like the world was created in 7 days, but like not scientifically or not like literally. That's not like the actual truth we're going to teach in school. We're not going to say that's like, we're not going to attack it, and you can have church and you can have a separate space for that. And so I think what's
Ken Ham is calling me right now. He's super pissed.
I don't know who that is.
That's the guy who built that Ark, the Creation Museum.
Oh.
Sorry, religious joke just got wrecked by a bunch of fucking atheist heathens.
Wait, did you say, wait, what name did you say?
Ken Ham.
Oh, there's another guy called Kent Hovind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've debated that guy before. He's like a 6,000-year-old Earth, like flat Earth creationist or some shit. Like, they call him the Dino Doctor. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, friendly dude. Okay, sorry, go ahead, MrGirl.
So we're trying to figure out: are we going to teach this gender ideology, trans ideology? From my point of view, or from Calvin's point of view, it's just science. And so we do have to figure out, like, you have to indoctrinate kids with something. That's the thing. It's like when you teach kids something, you're indoctrinating them to believe one thing or another. And so I feel like we haven't really figured out how to all agree on this. And then we could split up state by state, but like that's weird too.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be like taught. Like you could just like I think that there could just be like, yeah, okay, trans people are a thing, they exist, and like I don't know. There was never
that's already
like really controversial to some people, right?
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Well,
But there are trans people that exist.
Where does it even come in? Like,
I believe trans people exist the way Christians
like
exist.
if it's just mentioned in passing, like in school, I don't think that should be a problem. If it's just
like you're walking down the hallway and the teacher whispers, you like.
No, like if you're in class,
There's trans people.
if you're in class, like if you're in like I don't know, if you're in like a health class.
Okay,
like, it could
but when
come
you say
up.
trans people exist, you're saying trans people exist and they're right. Right. So if you say Christians exist,
I mean,
it's like yes, Christians exist. Trans people, yes,
I
people
believe
all the
trans
people
people
believe all kinds of different things.
I believe trans
but you're
people are right
saying,
in the sense that like transitioning is the most effective proven method for treating gender dysphoria. I mean, that's what conversion therapy doesn't work. I don't know what you're proposing. Like there's like
he's proposing you
I
just
think
live
you're
with
proposing
it.
not to talk about it.
You just live with it.
Gender dysphoria, and like some people transition and that works for them sometimes, or maybe here's the studies, that's different from your gender is like a soul.
Oh right, yeah.
And your gender is in your body, and maybe you're not in the right body. Maybe that, and like that's what a lot of trans people believe.
That's not how I view my transness. You know what I mean?
Okay, that doesn't matter. That's not what I'm talking. I'm not talking about your view. I know you're cool. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right, but there's
I'm saying generally the way this is presented is like the way you would teach an 8-year-old about gender, and that from the progressive narrative now is you would say, hey, so when you were born, we thought that you were a boy.
Right.
Okay, because you had a penis, but now you're old enough to start thinking, are you a boy? We don't know. We have to get to know you and figure out who you really are.
I don't think anybody's talking about like doing that sort of implication to a kid.
Oh,
right?
they are. I believe.
Okay, there might be some
absolutely
people, but
are.
literally nobody on this panel support. That's like the most extreme.
No, we don't support. I don't.
No, but
I would say that honestly, trans pushing that. I'm of the opinion that like a trans kid throughout history, like if they're trans, they're gonna find out. You don't have to
they are.
You have for me personally at least, they didn't have to teach me about trans people for me to know.
How do you explain the explosion in trans identifying youth?
I would love to talk about this. Thank you for asking. So sorry, that was too much.
No, but my counter argument is that you can't
give a counter argument when you haven't even heard his argument yet.
No, to what you just said is that I'm saying they'll just know of you can I think you can talk people into being trans.
Oh, you can totally talk people into it. 100%.
So can I make a parallel to you, Mr.
So they don't just know.
Can I make a parallel to you, Mr. Girl?
Of course.
Okay, so DID. Look at DID, right? You see this explosion all of a sudden of people and kids thinking they have DID, right? And it's like it is a social contagion because the disorder, people who actually have DID, there's debate about whether it's a real thing, but I believe DID.
Well, there is a debate. That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
Okay, but I believe that DID is. Can you let me finish really quick?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Just keep talking. Talk over him.
So DID I believe is like a trauma, DID in the way that it should be viewed as a traumagenic disorder. The etiology was trauma. However, there is a group of people who say they have DID who don't have trauma, and they are these people it's like a social contagion. With trans people, the thing is that there are trans people out there who are now identifying as trans because of it becomes like a social contagion in social groups. The problem is that this was studied and marketed as ROGD, which is, I think, at a surface level, is a fair concept. There is a thing of teen girls thinking that they're trans and they're not. But TERFs and rad films kind of took that and kind of went off the walls with it. When in reality, there's a way to address that phenomenon without coming to these extreme conclusions that okay, well this is a problem, so you don't have to make it turfy. You know what I mean?
Every trans person I've ever interviewed has this in group of real trans people and then out group of fake trans people, and they always do. No, let me fucking finish because I let you finish and it hurt me really badly. Every trans person defines themselves as the in group, and then has this bunch of loser out-group trans people that aren't real trans people, and real trans people just fucking know, and those they think, of course they think they know. They would say the exact same thing as me, but for them it's social contagion. I'm the real deal. And so how do you synthesize that into some kind of coherent lesson plan for children? What are we going to tell them? Every trans person thinks they're 90% of trans people are fake, but except them.
In my trans medicalist YouTuber days, this is what I would have agreed with you. But I've realized now I can't go with that anymore. So what I believe is that I believe that the thing is that there are a bunch of people who are all identifying as trans who are having completely different experiences. There are people like me and Buck who are probably experiencing the same thing, and it's like, you know, I would maybe call it like transsexual, something more like that. And then there are maybe people who are starting to transition for different reasons, and it's not so much that I can say that they're like fake trans people.
They don't think they're doing it for different reasons. They think they're doing it for the same reasons.
But there are...
okay, if I could just suggest something, Calvin, then you can take this, okay? I think that broadly speaking, okay, I think you can broadly split trans people into two groups, if I may, okay? I think that broadly you have
real ones and fake ones.
Yes, actually true. Yes, that's what I would say if I was being edgy. But I think broadly speaking, we have real trans people. We have trans people that experience dysphoria, an intensely discomforting feeling that is caused by an incongruence of mind and body. You have these people, and they typically want like group support, help, affirming surgeries, places to alleviate that dysphoria, which usually involves some form of social medical transitioning. That's like kind of the older, like the transsexual. Now we have newer things, which is trans people without dysphoria. As soon as you eliminate the dysphoria, you've opened a box of 50 trillion different possible things, and they might be in different groups. But I think that you can broadly like differentiate trans people between when they say like I'm part of the in group and the out group. I think it's usually talking about people that are like, I think dysphoria is like an important or some part of the trans experience, and then people are like, dysphoria has nothing to do with being trans.
Wait,
I want to be anything I can be. Yeah, go.
Can I ask you to replace dysphoria with incongruence? Because if you say dysphoria, it's like the trans medicalist thing. But
okay, I understand that. I think people are really scared of being trans medicalists sometimes. And I'm not.
But if you, the minute you're viewed as trans medicalist, you're completely written off. So that's
I understand. I understand what you're saying. The only problem is that like, and this is because I'm going by 2 emails that I got where people talking about this, and this is what they phrased to me. Okay, dysphoria is like the defining mindfuck of your entire puberty. So to an incredibly dysphoric trans person, when you, I'm speaking, this is all third party because I'm not trans. So if this doesn't connect, I understand. But for the way it was described to me is if you're an intensely dysphoric trans person, if another person says, oh yeah, I'm trans too, and I also have an incongruence, but there's no dysphoria, the trans person with dysphoria has no fucking idea what that person is talking about. Like, what do you mean when you say you have an incongruence with no dysphoria? Because the incongruence is like what you described earlier. It's not like people use the wrong pronouns, or it's not like you're sad that your dress is pretty. It's that you have like this deeply disgusting, discomforting feeling in your body that something is so wrong that like the second you start taking HRT, as soon as you see your body change, like something is being alleviated within you that is so deep that it's like unshakable. That's like my understanding.
That was the case for me, right? Yeah. Like that was the case for me. But what I've kind of like, I think that like when people are born, everybody has like you have like a predisposition to like, it's like kind of like not extreme, but so like, for example, if you have somebody who's born with like this underlying gender incongruence, who has a predisposition to being kind of like good at coping with mental health adversities, that incongruence might manifest as more discomfort. Because when I say dysphoria, I'm talking about the clinically significant like the criteria. Because we can have a whole debate. I think dysphoria as like just the construct of like like feeling distress. Yeah, I'm talking about diagnosis.
I think I agree with you, and this has always been the problem. Initially, trans medicalists only had themselves to blame, but like the problem is that trans medicalism quickly becomes hardcore gatekeeping. And I agree with you. It might be possible that somebody might have an incongruence, but they're not like thinking like I want to fucking kill myself because this is so horrible. It's more just like fuck, this sucks. But whether it's because of their resilience or who they are, they can deal with it better. I do agree that it's bad to be a trans person that says you need dysphoria, and when I say dysphoria, I mean you better be ready to fucking slit your throat because of how much you hate yourself, otherwise you're not a real trans person. That type of gatekeeping is really toxic. I do agree with that. Yeah.
That's why I say there's different kinds of people. Like I do consider myself a transsexual, more medical side of that, and we have newer trans people who don't want to have or have dysphoria.
But Destiny, I kind of went on a really like niche little thing there. But Destiny, you were in general kind of going on this point though, where like there are trans people who I think it's more about the trans people who have something immutable, integral to them, like that is unchangeable. It is unchangeable.
But then you have all these other people that are referring to like I think when you and Buck, when you guys are talking about like this integrated idea of gender, it's fundamentally different than this new age of person that is talking about like they have autism gender, or they have like deer gender, or like their genders are when they say gender, what they're really talking about is like forms of expression, which is fine. You can express, so that's awesome. But it's not like your gender. It's a fundamentally different thing, right? You don't have dysphoria because you don't have the same, tail that Bambi had, in the same way that a trans person might have dysphoria because they feel like their body is not matching the sex that is being express
right,
their
and
mind.
both are calling themselves the same thing, even though
That's
they have
right.
completely different needs.
Exactly.
And that's
That's
the problem,
Needs
because
and
you guys are
communities,
conflating
everything, yeah.
gender ideology as like all these people who are calling themselves trans, when there's like kind of two
That's
separate
right.
groups, and they need to be labeled as different things, because it's
That's
just
right.
it's not one's fake and one's not real. It's just that both are real, but
different.
they're different things.
So trans
the
people
problem,
now
though-
identify as trans. I don't identify as trans. I identify as a man. So the newer generation, a lot of these youngsters identify as trans. And so there's their difference
I
too.
just
I think
am
they take it on
trans.
as identity choice. It was never an identity choice for me. It was always a way and a means to become a man, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about these two different groups without addressing, some of the issues. Is validity. Is there validity to one group versus the other? Does one group merit childhood treatment over the other? I say no, because there isn't a way to identify the difference between these two groups, except with after the fact criteria and judgments about the other. And
Not after the fact. You could have a kid go in for psychological evaluation, and they can tell you.
Oh
Yeah, but
yeah,
you could be
psychological
wrong.
evaluation.
Well, do we
sure.
think that kids should be given any kind of psychiatric drugs at all, like below the age of 18? Because you can't really tell somebody has chronic depression.
I think it depends on I think transitioning is inherently harmful to the body. So
Yeah, it is.
It
is.
Right. So there has to be a trade-off. My definition.
Medical. Well, we don't even talk about that. What about putting testosterone in the body?
Yeah. I mean,
I think to call it harmful, I think that's a value judgment. I think it's
yes,
what if a cis
it
man
is,
has to take...
that's how we decide what is harmful and what is not. We make a value judgment of like, well, would I want that to happen to me? And if enough of us say no, then we think of it as harmful.
Yeah, but I mean, like for stuff that
that's
fucks
right.
with your brain chemistry, right? Like if we're talking about like SSRIs,
testosterone.
Well, yeah, I'm saying like, what about like all forms of psychiatric drugs?
Yeah, they are all somewhat harmful
Mm-hmm.
to differing degrees, but I would say getting surgery is like definitionally harmful in some way, unless you start defining your sex organs as things that like aren't you or aren't really part of you, and then you're removing like growth.
You're not putting value on how like severe the dysphoria is.
Yes.
Like
right. Well,
the dysphoria is more harmful than the surgery.
That's true. So I
Hopefully.
don't value that much. That's true. But also, yeah. So if you're asking me, then like it's never worth it. But I'm talking about how we define it as like a society. We have to have some evaluation of harm versus how badly you need it versus how old you are.
But that's why I think it's important for
believe
people
that
like me to be visible, so people can see it did help me, and I am here, and I am alive, and I am functioning, and I am a big part of the world. Even though I will agree with you, long-term use of testosterone has done things to my body that is not okay. But that being said, I'm willing to take that on as a person who needs it. I'm willing to take on the negative effects of the testosterone on my body, and that's my choice as an adult to do that. So I agree with you on that, but I also want people to understand that it's really important for us to be in the world so people can see, wow, Buck really did do this. I might not agree with it, but it really changed his life. He really became a good person. He's alive and he's happy. And that's what I want really the world to see. You don't ever have to agree with me. All you have to do is understand that it saved my life.
Yes, but so I think Nick is getting at how do we define these two groups? Calvin's saying that we can just do an evaluation, but like we don't. That's evaluation. But that's like who's doing the evaluating? Do they believe in this? Do they believe in this shit or not? As
this
would be my first question.
There's a problem with psychologists nowadays, where there's a lot of psychologists out there who will just affirm, and they won't take the time to explore like what else, all the possible mental health issues that could be going on with a person who wants to transition at a young age.
There's a problem with psychologists today in which there are some who will not affirm no matter what. They insist on exploring, and they just will not affirm the gender when we know that gender dysphoria is real, and they will not get on board. Instead, they insist on other types of treatment, and that is just the problem right now. This is a psychology problem. And with that little hot mic drop, I have to go, gentlemen, because I have 1 hour and 13 minutes to spend with my wife before I have to do my own show. MrGirl, it's been an absolute pleasure to the panel. I love all of you. You're all very transgender and super gay. And just like as the only black man here, I have to sign off. Sorry, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for chatting.
You're hilarious, dude.
Bye, Nick.
I gotta leave too, my friend. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks
as
for
well.
having me.
It was great to meet you. I really appreciate it.
Contact me. Okay. Thanks, you
Okay.
guys.
Thanks a lot for coming. It's
I
been fun.
appreciate meeting all of you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye, Buck.
Now that those guys are gone, we can really get into the kids.
I would
right?
love to talk to you, Mr. Girl, about this because I know you're a psychology major. You were a psychology major, right?
Well, no, he actually had clinical training. We found that out the other day.
That's all.
Extensive clinical training.
No. One of my fans came up with a conspiracy theory that I'm secretly a failed psychologist, and Stephen really likes the idea.
Yeah, you were terminated for ethical violations, probably.
Exactly.
Okay, I believe that I believe there needs to be a really huge overhaul of the gender dysphoria stuff. I'm what's the word? I am so passionate about this. I believe that like they should really focus on honing in the gender dysphoria criteria and in the DSM. And on top of that, this is something I've kind of proposed, and I don't know 100% how they do this, but I think there should be a way to not only measure if someone has dysphoria, but to measure the severity of it. Like if they could take all these traits that you could possibly be dysphoric about, whether it's your secondary sex characteristics, your genitals, your just certain traits, and evaluate how severe the dysphoria is on each of those different
Okay, so we plug it into a formula, and then we say, oh, you know what? You almost were dysphoric enough.
It's the best.
But we're almost dysphoric enough to transition, but
no,
right there.
No,
Sorry.
but it would be a way
come back when it's a little worse.
It would be a way to help somebody. It would be a way to help determine how if to say okay, this is imminent. This is imminent.
I think the problem is I don't think he thinks this is a real thing. So you guys are having a conversation that's way past the point.
Is there anything you could say, Destiny? Anything?
No. Well, my argument would be over whether or not being trans is real, right? Because if you think it's real, and if he's a reasonable person, which I think he is, if you think it's real, then there must be some question or some diagnostic criteria that we could use to differentiate between people that are actually trans and are just having confusing issues as a teenager. But the problem is MrGirl sees all of this rest on some spectrum, and there's not this is the trans part, and the only way to treat them is medically, and these are the non-trans people. He sees it all as just a lot of people have a lot of kind of fucked up problems. A lot of us have problems with their bodies. Some of us have eating disorders. Some of us wish we were women. Some of us whatever. And it's just kind of stuff that we have to learn to live within life. And we don't use medicine to treat every single potential thing. If somebody walked into the office and said, fuck, I watched all the Pirates of the Caribbean movie and I really want an eye patch and a peg leg. Can you chop my shit up? The doctor would never say, okay, fine, we'll do that. That's just something that you have to learn to live with. That's kind of the side that he's presenting.
You get me, Steven.
I know, I try.
And I mean, then what's the point of having the conversation then if you're not going to budge on it? You know what I mean?
Well, you're here to budge him.
Well, yeah, you're here to budge
But I mean,
him.
I'm sitting here.
Change my mind, Calvin. Well, no, the conversation was supposed to be about transal culture.
Yeah.
So the freedom to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And whether that's do you? I know you think I'm wrong. Do you think I'm so wrong that I should be banned, or do you think I'm so wrong that I should You're right. So that's what the discussion was originally supposed to be about. But yeah, we can be I'm happy to get into the weeds, but I don't know. I haven't changed.
If
my
you really
mind
wanted
so
to
far.
do a panel like this, you needed to grab the demon mamas of the world and bring them on.
Please bring her here, please.
No, she won't come into a chat with me. Oh, she's definitely not coming into here. Yeah.
She banned me multiple times.
You never know.
I just want to say, I want to give a huge shout out tonight, okay, to Dick, who I know has suffered.
Hi, Dick.
Have you ever been in a conversation like this for this long before?
I'm gonna go identify as an alcoholic after this.
Oh my God!
This is the easiest stream I've ever done.
I will say that conversations about cancel culture have the potential to be the best conversations, but the problem is you'll never get the people that hate each other in the same panel, so they're always horrible because
of cancel culture.
Mama.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is the people that want to cancel us will never come on and talk to us, and if they did, it would be exciting. It'd be screaming matches.
That's
I
true.
think you should be fucking banned from me. It's oh yeah, well, why do you think I should be banned? Fuck you, But those two worlds never collide.
Are you mad?
So
Are you mad?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we need a moderator anymore, Dick. If do you want to?
I'm gonna hop off and grab food.
Well, I was gonna ask you, do you want to say what you think about any of this stuff?
No, because I don't want to lose my Patreon. I do have one question, Calvin. You think you can get transitioning drugs as a teenager, right? You think that's good, as I understand your reasoning for it.
I think that it's good for certain people. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there should be a lower limit to when you can get a beer? If you're getting transitioning drugs at 15, can I get a Tecate at 15?
I just think that there's a difference because
Got
like
it.
one is medically necessary and one is
Yes or no, Calvin?
Honestly,
Yes or
fuck
no?
it. I used to drink at
It's a
15.
disease, my friend. I don't know if you're up to the literature on that.
Yeah, but I don't think we
Legalize
treat
all drugs.
alcoholism with more alcohol. Well, if you're an alcoholic, you do, I guess. I guess we call that self-medication, huh? Hey, if the kids are buying HRT online, yeah, maybe, yeah. Thanks a lot.
That's
Dick.
good to talk. Good to talk to all of you. Good to meet you, Calvin.
Nice
Good
to meet
show.
you, Dick.
Thank you for hitting it out of the park, Dick. I really appreciate it.
I did good reading on your questions, right?
Yes, you're great at reading.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Have a good one.